Welcome to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, where you can hear your favorite performers talk about how they got started, their careers, and everything in between. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Spotify at Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, and on my main Broadway account at Broadway_Corner on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. We're finally back after a couple months. Since I started college, everything's been a little bit crazy, but I'm so happy you're here. And today is a very special podcast because it's not exactly just an interview, but it's really just like, I don't know what to call it, but just talking about the show Here Lies Love, the album. We're going to go through all of the songs with none other than Aaliyah Elbert, who is pretty much Here Lies Love's super fan. She has seen the show more than 50 times now. I think you're on 53, right? Is that true?
53, yeah.
53, going to put 54 tomorrow. I only made it to round 7, so that's a little sad, but we're just gonna go.
That's still a big deal.
Oh yeah, I'm like, no one knows it better than Aaliyah at this point besides the cast. So I'm so excited to just get talking. I mean, Aaliyah is a giant Broadway fan. She also saw the show K-pop 20 times. That's how we met, through K-pop, and then we became better friends just because of our love for Here Lies Love. So yeah, we're just really excited to get talking and, doing another podcast. I'm so excited. So just to start out, hi Aaliyah, how are you doing?
Hi. I'm good. It is a kind of sad Friday, but we're off work today, which is super fantastic. And I saw Here Lies Love yesterday.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're doing great. We're doing great.
And you've got your hat. I also have a hat.
Yeah, I've got mine.
But you do have the hat. I have my little disco ball necklace that you got for me, actually. So special and so sweet of you. And so yeah, I'm so excited. It's a great day. It's a Friday. Got a weekend coming up. And yeah, just to dive right into it, Aaliyah, when did you first find out about Here Lies Love? Like, what was your first impression of it? What did you think of it? And when was your first visit?
Yeah. So the first time I think I heard about it was the Broadway announcement, I want to say in January. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew was that it was an all-Filipino cast because I remember seeing the open call for all-Filipino talent, and I was like, that's really cool. But I didn't actually get my first exposure to it until the B-roll shooting back in June, like latest June. I don't know the dates exactly because I'm really bad at timing and dates, but that was the first time I ever saw bits and pieces of the show. I think I saw just a couple of numbers like the Fabulous Ones, 11 Days when she passed by, and then I saw the show, I want to say July 2nd, and that was the first time I ever saw it. And I just remember my jaw was just on the floor by the time that the show finished. I was a political science major in school, so to see a show like this that not only is a Trojan horse, it is telling you to, hey, be very careful because this can and will happen, is very relevant, especially in today's political climate. But yeah, that's a little bit of my introduction. I was looking and I found my first playbill from when I saw it. They still had the pie playbills left, so this is always a really fun memory. So yeah.
Yes, and did you do floor the very first time that you saw it?
I did. That was a very wild experience. I've had people be like, do you want to stand on the floor for the first time? And I really like immersive stuff. So my answer is always yes.
Always yes.
Because I kind of liked feeling like I was in the middle of it. And, I feel like you get more of an emotional impact when you're in the middle of the action because you were literally in while it's happening. So watching the rise and fall, watching the people power revolution in the action is a little bit different from sitting in the mezzanine or sitting in the lounge. It's just a very different emotional impact, and it's definitely one of the most unique experiences that I think has ever been to Broadway. But yeah, I tell people all the time, go to the floor, especially if you want something immersive, and so that you can kind of be where everything happens and you get to dance.
Yeah,
no other show do you get to dance and no one's yelling at you.
Yes, no, I mean, I know we try, in a way with K-pop, we were like, we're gonna dance and party, but with Here Lies Love, it's encouraged, which is so unique. You never get to have those different experiences on Broadway of being fully in it. And I didn't know that was your first time was on the floor, because my first time, I was in the fear mess, on the left side, I don't know, but around where like Aaron
Hmm.
and Julia always would stand.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It was interesting, like that first time, just being like a little bit separated, and I don't have great vision, so I was
Hmm.
like, I can't see the faces as well. And then going back, like I saw it on a Tuesday, went back the Sunday. I was like, Floor, I'm never doing anything else again. And I didn't. I didn't do a
Okay.
single other experience every single time that I went back for the rest of the 7 times. And so yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we'll get so into it of like what being on the floor is like, but yeah, I'm like we can both agree that it's literally the best.
It's
In
so
the
much fun.
entire world. Yeah, there's no feeling like it.
No, absolutely. And I mean, like, even when you're buying the tickets, like, especially on Today Tix, it'll always say dancing encouraged, floor standing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, they're telling you, you should dance. And I mean, like, there's even moments in the show where Moses is the DJ or whoever's playing the DJ is like, come on and dance with us. Like, it's a party, but you also take something away from it. So, what more can you ask for?
Yes, exactly. Totally. And getting into the album, let's talk about like let's just go through each of the songs and talk about each one of them because
Yeah.
like, there is so much within this music of David Byrne and Fatboy Slim, like the things that are said but versus the things that are like are intended to be felt, like it's such a nuanced conversation to be had about this different music, and so I think it would be I think we were both talking about like it would be good to just go through each of the songs and like if you've listened to it or seen it then just like kind of going a little deeper than just the first initial listen, and so when we start out like American Troglodyte, like let's talk about it. I don't know, you have the
Oh, yeah.
floor.
So like I did like a little bit of, well, that's like an understatement. I did like a good amount of research after like kind of seeing the show and then like listening to the original cast and then listening to this cast. Like American Troglodyte is actually shortened significantly. Like
Yeah.
when I went back and listened, I was like, wow, like American Troglodyte used to be really long. But I mean, it's literally talking about the audience. Like I remember watching the theater lovers videos being like Americans are going to Broadway shows, like, and of course like everybody's cheering at that moment. But I mean, like if you think about what American Troglodyte is, like Troglodyte, I want to say is like kind of living in an ignorant state,
Yes.
which is really a call out because I mean like Reagan didn't get involved until 86, which was after their almost 20-year thing of martial law. So I
Hmm.
mean like they let martial law last for so long before they decided to get involved.
Yeah.
And I think it is rightfully so to be like Americans were a little bit ignorant of it, even though like the Philippines were an American colony for so long.
Ah,
So I
yeah.
mean, it's a very, yeah.
Oh, totally. I was gonna say I'm looking like at I have like my Genius lyrics pulled up for each of the songs. And, like,
Yes.
it's literally troglodyte is a cave dwelling human. Like troglodytes are cave dwelling non-humans and just like I guess sheltered a bit. If you put it in that different
Hmm.
context of like, one of the lyrics, Americans are living the simple life, like of, the American dream or whatever that means, and like all these positive things that are being said and like calling out the audience immediately is like really interesting, and maybe most people don't even know what troglodyte means, like I know I didn't,
Hmm.
definitely, but just like all the different things that like kind of bring together American culture and being like that's you, like listen up because this is going to be something completely different, because I think most people who see Here Lies Love are like troglodytes in the sense that we're sheltered of from Filipino history, because like most of us have never heard a single thing about this except for Imelda's shoes, which they never mention either,
Yeah.
and like that's not a thing that's talked about, and so yeah, just to
Hmm.
be like, yeah, you've never heard this story before, probably, unless you're Filipino or
Hmm.
have like that history with it of just being like, you like get ready for a wild ride because like you have no idea
Yeah.
what.
And I mean, like for like Filipino history is also American history because I mean, like for so long they were colonized under us.
Yeah.
Like we bought them from Spain. So I mean, like in that sense, like Filipino history is a part of our history. So for us to be so ignorant about it, is that also a nice little call out at the beginning, which I think is really interesting. And then I think someone told me, because I didn't even know anything about Imelda's shoes. Like I didn't know anything
I didn't.
about this woman until I set foot
Yeah.
like in the Broadway theater at the B-roll shoot. Like I didn't know anything about the shoes. I didn't know anything about like the diapers and diamonds, nothing about that until like I walked in. I just knew she was a bad person. That was all I knew when I walked in.
Yeah.
But kind of like walking out afterwards, I'm like, Jesus, like I feel like I need to know a little bit more, but I think they said that the shoes happened after she was exiled, so that's probably
Yes.
why they didn't touch on it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was discovered after, like soon after. I guess the
Hmm.
Malacanang, like the palace, and they actually got to look at all their stuff and be like, "What's going on in there?" While everyone else is, living
Hmm.
on the outside. Um, and so yeah, American Troglodyte, and like I love the choreography in that song. I mean, you and I have been like, we're always like doing the like
Like the boys do it so much better. Everyone does it so much better, and the girls they kill it every single time. But I
yeah.
like the
They're like, yeah, no, it's like such,
yeah.
and like what the girls do too, like with their hands is so like just intricate, and I wish I could like see it over and over again and like learn it because I'm like, I'm a musical theater performer, like somewhat dancer, and so it's like it's
We,
so
we we call it moving. We call
we're
it
moving.
moving.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm in dance classes every day here. But yeah, I
Exactly.
remember like when I first started, I didn't know that like Conrad and Jose and everyone else was like in the ensemble as well as playing their roles. And then like once I learned that, every
Hmm.
single time I would see Conrad, I would just stare at him for American Troglodyte and like watch him do the choreography. Like it's so funny. Just stare at him um, while he was doing it.
Well,
So,
for the longest time, the first time, every time I go see the show, I would always look at Tim and Nathan because they're the ones that are like
middle.
in the center platform or whoever was like on the track for them. And then
Yeah,
I think I just happened to look and I'm like, oh, like there's Jose, Gina, and Melody. And I'm like, oh, there's Conrad. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess,
yeah,
they
yeah.
are also here too. I mean, I think I had always noticed that Jose was there, but I was always just like, I don't know. It would make perfect sense. I mean, like if Jose and Melody are there, Conrad would also have to be there. But I'm like, never even noticed because I'm so focused on everything else that's happening.
I know, and when Aaron was on, I would like look at him too. It's like there he is, because usually he's like all the way, I think he's all the way in the mez like during that, right? Yeah, yeah. I'm like I think that's
Yeah,
what.
he's over where Melody ends for the show when
Yes.
she's in Why Don't You Love Me? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, that was like the first. That's like the place where I sat like the first time was like that platform was right there. But yeah, I love that song, and it's just like it's so full of energy
It's
too.
such a good
Like
song.
it's great, and everyone's getting like hyped up for like what's to come. And then yeah, Here Like
Hmm.
Love, the title song. Like it's
Yes, yes.
the song that everyone walks away singing once you leave the show. Um,
So my coworkers, after they saw the show, that was actually the song that they were singing the whole time when we were at stage door when I brought them.
they did. That's
They
so
were like singing Here Lies Love the whole time. And I was like, yes,
it's addictive.
yes.
The song is very addictive and like it has a good melody. Melody. Um
Ah, hi,
melody
Melody.
too. Yeah. Hey. But yeah, I mean the song like it starts with her being a 16-year-old girl in Leyte, who's very poor and like it's something totally different than what you might think if you know anything about Imelda. Is like she was poor and she grew up like she says like whose dresses are all hand-me-downs and scraps. Like she didn't have anything, and she talks about not having shoes, and then if you know anything about her you're like you're gonna get a lot more in your future. Like there's going to be more coming her way, but like she started in such a humble beginning, and she talks about the most important things are love and beauty, and that kind of sets the stage for the entire rest of the show of like her values and what she actually believes, um what she believes in and what she believes that she's doing for her people. Um, and just like, yeah, to prosper and to fly, like a basic human right. She wants to like get to a better place than where she was before because of her humble
Mhm,
beginnings. And she didn't like that. She knew she was somewhat destined to do more. Yeah.
mhm. No, I think because I watched the Ramona Diaz documentary that was just titled Amelda, and it was so the first time I don't know what you thought the words "Here Lies Love" meant. Like I listened to the titular song because I had no idea what "Here Lies Love" means, and then like as I listened to it, and she's like, "Don't have my name inscribed into the stone, just put Here Lies Love." I'm like, oh, that completely changes what I thought this whole show is about.
Yeah.
But then watching the documentary, that's literally like what she says word for word. She's like, I want on my tombstone, "Here lies love," because she believed for so long everything that she did was for love. And I mean, like she talked about all the time, and I think we could talk about it like a little bit later, especially in Star and Slave, like how she felt like she had to be beautiful. Like she had to build up the Filipino dream. You know, if I can do it, like everyone can do it. You just have to focus on being beautiful. Like I remember she talked about how when she was just meeting, you know, world leaders like, you know, Ronald Reagan or Fidel Castro, like people that are mentioned in the show, she would take like I think an hour and 30 minutes, and then when she was just meeting the Filipino people, she would take 2 hours because she wanted them to have a standard to look up to. So like from the beginning, it's very much known that she is a little on the vain side. I mean, like when she's talking about the turnos that are walking, she's like, the ladies passing by, better class than I. How much it means to me to be like these. Like you see all the women in the ensemble dressed beautifully. They have their
Yeah.
parasols, and she's like reaching out, wanting to essentially be like them. So it kind of sets the stage very carefully. But what always cracked me up was depending on who was in the audience that already knew a little bit about Imelda, whenever they would say, sometimes I had no shoes, there'd be a lot of people that would just start laughing. And I'm like, that is a cute little nod that David Byrne said.
Yes, that's like the only nod too. It's the only nod in the
Mm-hmm.
entire show to like the lavishness
Yeah,
of not just like not that they don't mention the lavishness later, but especially the shoes because that's mostly what people know about her. And yeah, the fact that like they took the title of the show and this song just exactly from what she actually said, and it's like here lies love, is she wanted to be known as that she did it for love. But even though like at the end,
mm-hmm.
you know, we'll talk about later, but like she's trying to convince herself in a way of what she's saying. And yeah, like it's so at first you're like, oh, I feel for her. You're like, I feel sad for her. I want her to succeed. I want her to do well and, you know, have all the things she's talking about. And if you didn't know anything about her, that's probably exactly how you would think, is like, yeah, maybe she could be something better than where she is right now instead of just being like a little poor
Exactly.
girl in the Philippines who, you know, has nothing. And so it just sets her up, not as like painting her in a good light, but just setting her up as where she began. Because, you know, I think I've said before, like every person, you know, they had a journey to get to where they were. They didn't just come out of the womb like as the person
Exactly.
became. It's like there was different things that brought her to be where she is. And then with Australia, like coming in too, it's like setting up that friendship for the rest of the show to just progress from like them being
Mm-hmm.
really good friends and being there for each other to what eventually does happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking for Australia, I mean, like Melody, like in the podcast that she did, I think with Half Hour, I think one of the things that people were talking about a lot was like how it felt like we were trying to empathize with them. But I mean, Melody was talking about like it's not necessarily that we are trying to empathize with Imelda. It's just showing that if you kind of allow yourself to be seduced and persuaded by these people in power by following them blindly, like this is what any type of person can fall into if you're not, you know, entirely careful.
Oh
But
yeah.
also about Australia, like a lot of the times, like most recently, like I don't know if you probably do, but like if you're watching this and you haven't seen the show, like Australia and Maria Louisa have two different parts, but we'll talk about Maria Louisa later. Like Australia not only is the representation of like Imelda's friend and nanny, but she's also a representation of Imelda's relationship with the Filipino people. So when you're watching and listening to it from those two different angles, it definitely changes the scope of the show. Like watching Melody like reach out for Imelda and be like, I do it all for you. It's almost like a nod of like the Filipino people being like, we are doing this for you, like because we love you.
Yeah.
And it's just very deep, like when you look at it from that aspect. So
Yeah.
definitely, if you ever see the show before it closes, definitely look at it from both of those aspects.
Yes. No, it's like definitely something you don't get on the first watch. It's like you have to, this is a show you go back to and
Mm-hmm.
revisit to really feel it. And yeah, Here Lies Love. I mean, it's such like a happy song at first, but there's so many different undertones in it that are like that you think about after and you're like, oh, I see. They were setting this up so that this could be a payoff later for like what, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um with her beginning to where she ended up. Yeah, and then Child of the Philippines, that's like a bop. I freaking love that
That
song.
is such a good
That
song.
song is so good.
Conrad Ricamora.
Yes. No, I mean,
Oh, such
I
a
mean
good
even like
song.
even in the beginning, like lyrics, this song's going out to all my Filipinos going through the struggle. It's such an upbeat song, but they're talking about people going through struggles and people like he says, you may feel like nobody sees you, but Aquino's got your
But
back.
Aquino's got your back.
So it's like setting him up too as
Oh
like,
my gosh, yes.
oh my God, I love Conrad so much. But it's like, yeah, like bringing him up as kind of this person that's gonna support the Filipino people when maybe other people won't. And I started out on a totally opposite version of where Imelda starts. He said he was a little prince. He got it whatever he wanted. But he was like, no, like maybe I'm destined for more. Like money's not gonna set you free. You have to go out and help people, whereas Imelda, she was like, I don't have things right now, but I'm gonna get them. And also,
Hmm.
like, I think something I just thought about too was how Imelda didn't grow up with a mom really. Like her mom died really young, and someone was talking about recently,
Yeah.
it was Ariel, I think, how that probably affected her deeply with maybe her sense of empathy and just who she became as a person, because your mom is someone that influences you so
You
much
learn a lot from.
from your early years. I mean, you took your mom to the show. I saw the show, and my mom also saw the show with me too. And it's like even those relationships, maybe the lack of like made Imelda who she was. And then maybe like Ninoy
Mhm.
was maybe brought up in a different way where he grew up wanting to help others and to do things selflessly for the betterment of other people, and so he really fought for them. And yeah, and it's kind of culminated of everything he stands for in this song, I think, even though it's like you just hear it and you're like, oh, and let's dance and like let's have fun, but you're
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, maybe there's something else here too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, like everything. I think we just watched the same interview. Was it the one where it was like Jose, Jasmine, and Ariel and
I watched that
CUNY?
too. Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah, that was the one. I literally just watched that the other day. So like when you're talking, I was like,
I watched it
we
like a
just
week
watched
ago
the
or
same
so. Yeah.
interview.
Yeah.
I was just watching it yesterday while I was like waiting to go see the show because I was like, I'm not at work. I'm literally just sitting here doing nothing. I'm gonna watch this and hype myself up for
Yeah.
it. But yeah, every single thing you just said, I mean, like I can't even think of a better way to describe it, but I mean like more of kind of the vanity side comes out in Imelda a little bit. And I think like kind of see that progression. I feel like I don't want to touch on it too much because really Rose of Tacloban is really where a lot of what I've been feeling every time I go see this show has been hitting. But I do feel like Nino coming from a place of privilege kind of allowed him to see that my privilege has allowed me a lot of opportunities where a lot of people don't have them.
Yeah.
So it's my turn to give back. And like every time that I've seen the show, I've kind of seen Nino as being like the father of the Philippines, which is so interesting because that's what Imelda always wanted to
Always wanted.
portray herself as being, this caring and compassionate person because Imelda was very manipulative. I feel like at a time she may have believed that, she was caring and compassionate, but everything she did was with a give me mentality. Like, I'm doing this for you, so you have to do this for me.
Mhm.
Not a, I'm just giving this to you because this is out of the goodness of my heart. Like, being like, how can our country be healed? Can it change and be strong? Well, the answers come soon. We have waited so long. And then I'm like completely blanking on all the words right now, even though I literally just saw it yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
But the second verse, like right after Imelda comes in and how can our country be healed? I'm literally like,
Wait,
what it's
uh,
right after it's not a dream and you know that it's good.
oh,
But
no,
we
that's
have
not this
waited
part.
so long for a change to come soon.
Yes, yes, but we have waited so long. Now a change will
Yeah.
come soon. And if you put me in charge, like that's what.
Hey.
So it's like he's like elect me. He's wanting to, that's kind of his election too, is the song of being a senator, of being
Hmm.
like, let me help out. I can do things for you, and just presenting it in that way as like everyone, and then give our people a break and getting everyone to get into it. Of like, he wants
Yeah.
to do so much, and like What was the line? Yeah, we can educate our children and we can unionize our
And we
workers.
can unionize our workers.
It's like, when is that said on
Literally.
a Broadway
Yeah.
stage? Like, when is that ever said usually, of like all these real world issues that need to be, solved? And he's like, yeah, I'm open to this. Like, let me help you, um, become a better nation. And even in like, what was it? What was it? Oh yeah, and then like even just in the song itself, like when he reaches out to the audience, and obviously we both love that part when he like holds an audience,
Yes.
and like that has happened multiple times for both of us, where it'll happen, and you're just like, oh my God, and you're like, my heart melts every time, because Conrad did it
Yes.
like the third time I saw it. He also did it the fourth time I saw it, which was with you. He did like he held both of our hands. And then when I saw it with you and Aaron, like Aaron grabbed out for your hand, and then the next time I saw it when I wasn't with you, he like went straight for me. I was like, and it's just like that's the effect that Ninoy has on people too, as like if you're just taking it out of context and putting it in a different one of like it's just like a warm fuzzy feeling when you see Ninoy, of like he's gonna do
And
something for us, like he's gonna help
and
us.
then like I think about a lot, like even just in their costumes, is kind of giving, kind of a nod. Like Ninoy is in all white, and then Marcos is in all black. I mean, like if that isn't heavy foreshadowing, I really don't know what else could be. I mean, like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave it at that,
Yeah.
you know.
The Ramos and is a genius. And
Yeah,
also that song goes straight
yeah,
into Opposite Attraction, which is a very fascinating song too. Um,
yeah.
which you don't think about until you see it over and over again. But
Hmm.
Imelda's like, everyone needs love and to love in return. And she's like, you want to change the world? That's fine. That's okay. And he's like, okay. He's like, I'm
Hmm.
trying to help people and you just want love. Like, it's just very different topics that are being talked about. Yeah, everyone also deserves and wants love, but that's not like we should all succeed first and thrive as a country and thrive as a people. Um, and then
Hmm.
I love when they're like, no one lives by bread alone, and Jay always like start listing things, and then rice.
Rice is the last one because he's like fruits, vegetables, rice, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Boy,
No, but I mean, like,
him and AJ did that. They like turned to each other like rice. I was like, yes, that's for Asian people.
hmm,
Rice is life. Rice is life. It's definitely
rice is
true.
so good. My grandmother would be rolling over in her grave if I did not eat at least one bowl of rice a day. God bless her soul. But
Yeah.
I think that also speaks to them as a whole. Like Imelda was very complacent with Ninoy, like kind of okay with just being like just there, just as a, I don't want to say like a trophy wife, but I mean like she saw Ninoy as a way for fame and fortune, because I mean like he just told us like he came from wealth,
Yeah.
and he wants to be a senator. And like at that time, like you see even during 11 days, like when Ferdinand is introduced, like Jasmine's character comes out and it's like that boy is a senator. So like
Yeah.
that held a lot of weight back
Yeah.
then.
No, it is like
So I
she
mean
wants
she's
to
like,
be that figure. She wants to be that kind of figure, like
mm-hmm,
alongside a strong man. Like, yeah.
mm-hmm. And she wants all the fame and glory that goes with it. Because I mean, like literally, when she's like, "No one lives by bread and bread alone," like she's homegirl's trying to eat. Like just put in late term, like she is trying to eat. She's trying to be well off. She's trying to be successful without having to do much, and she's like trying to seduce him essentially, and be like opposite attraction, like magnetism of the pieces of the puzzle. That's one of my favorite songs in the show. I live for that moment every single time. Like she's trying to seduce him, and then we very clearly see that he is not affected
No.
at all. He's like literally telling like, you know how I am, I gotta speak my mind, and
Yeah.
I think you're great. However, we are on different wavelengths.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so sorry. And so I don't think I told you this, I told Christina this. So whenever whoever was in the Corey Aquino track
Yes.
came up on the stage. The first time I saw it, I remember being like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. Like Ninoy is choosing the Philippines over Imelda. And then I think around 40 is when I realized, oh wait, this is the person that's playing Corey Aquino. So this is literally foreshadowing of being like Corey Aquino becomes president.
Yeah.
It's a little bit also of that, and I'm like, you know what? It's also just a really nice nod as well. So it's also really funny to see like the slideshows in the back where they're scribbling over Melda's face.
Yes, yes. No, I
So
love all the pictures that show are so cute and like I wish I could just look at them all
they
the time. It's like
are.
adorable. But yeah, no, I think I thought about it with her being Corey as well, Corey Aquino, Ninoy's wife. And then like I forgot and then I like remembered. But it's like such an interesting thing because yeah, he's getting married. He's like gonna choose a girl who's not as tall as him. And as a tall girl, I'm like, so sorry, I'm in Imelda's shoes for that one. Like I'm like so I would be taller than
Oh
him.
my gosh.
But yeah, it's like so fascinating when you see like he has the little flag and he's like, but politics put you to sleep. Like, you know, like can we still be friends? Like, and later he says like Imelda's a great person, but like her choice um
He's being so kind and saying that
very
she's a great person. But I
fascinating.
mean, like, the fact that he says the politics puts you to sleep, and then Corey is literally standing right there in the full Filipino flag regalia, like dressed to flag.
Yeah.
Like literally just the biggest foreshadowing if you didn't already know the story that she becomes the first woman
Yes.
president of the Philippines.
Oh yeah.
And like he's marrying a woman that is just as politically hungry and wants change as he does. So I
Yes.
mean, him being like, "But politics puts you to sleep," is also been like, "Girl, like you just want to be here. You don't actually want to help me with anything. You just want
No.
to stand there and look pretty."
Yeah. No, they have very
So
different
yeah,
opinions. It's evident that they have those differing opinions and that like Amelda's like opposite attraction and they're like doing the same choreography at first, like in perfect unison, then Corey comes in and does the same thing, but like better.
hmm
And
yeah, she's doing the literally exact
yeah,
choreography
with
that
the
Nino
hip
is doing
choreography.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
like the exact opposite of what Imelda's doing is what Nino is doing, but then whoever is on Corey's track does exactly of what Nino's choreography is. So like already saying like perfect unison.
Yes, it's like they're gonna
So
fit,
yeah.
but they don't, even though as much as Imelda wants it to work, Ninoy's like, I'm sorry, I'm not falling for it. Yeah. And then we lead into right into Rose of Tacloban, which is a
Yes.
hilarious song, by the way. Like there's so much
It
in
is.
it.
It
There's like so much in it. Or like to try is to succeed is what she says at first. But you're like, okay, like all right, we're getting there. We're seeing what her thoughts are and who this character is, and
hmm
Ninoy said she was too tall. I mean, who knows?
insane.
That's funny. And everyone's laughing, and then later it comes back, and you're like, what? But yeah, it's like as if that's the only reason that Ninoy broke up with her. Like,
She probably had like a sixth sense and was like, "This girl is crazy." But I mean, like that scene, literally, that whole song is just spelling out Imelda's vanity, and that really comes back in 7 years, which is that time that you're talking about. But I
yes.
mean, like even the time where it always makes me laugh whenever she says this. She's like, um, what does she say? She's saying she's looking in the magazines and she's cutting out
Oh,
the models'
yeah,
faces
yeah,
and
yeah.
putting her own in there. Like,
Yes, like elegant
what?
women on a magazine page.
Mm-hmm.
Elegant women like a pair, like, and then cutting out their faces and replacing them with my own. Like, like she's doing all these crazy
Selfishly,
things.
like
Like,
literally. But I love Ariel's voice whenever she does it. I don't know why. Like just the way that she's just cutting off their faces, just like itches a
like
really good part of
I
my brain. I
don't
don't
know.
know why.
Like as a singer, Ariel is one of the best people like in the world. Like she's so
She has a great
technically
voice. She
good.
has a great voice.
And yeah, like just the crazy of like she wants to be those women on the page still. Like that's the theme is like she still wants those things and then, you know, who knows what will lie beyond tomorrow for the Rose of Tacloban. Like
hmm
and
And
that
then like,
this pageant and she's the prettiest girl in all of
mhm.
Tacloban and like yeah.
So what's so crazy is that when I was watching the documentary,
I think I know what you're
this
gonna
was like a nod to, this is like a nod to like what happened. I don't remember what pageant it was, but I think she was runner up, and then she like
Manila. I think it was Manila.
persuaded, she persuaded the mayor to, I think, make her a better position than what runner up was. And so I think that is funny, like, when they run over to Gina, and of course, like Gina's character is very over the top and it always gets a laugh, but that could have very easily also been a nod to that because I mean, like, even though Imelda seems like very shocked, like it also seems like oh, stop it.
Yeah.
Like I knew this was gonna happen, but it's like she's gotta show that she's not as vain as we know her to be.
Yeah, like
So I think about that a lot too.
yeah. No, and it's just,
Literally.
even later, she's like, she holds on to that title because it's like, it's this little like girls pageant that she did years ago. And then later on, she's like, she does the hands thing too, like, you know.
And she's like this woman is like in her 40s talking about something that she did when she was like maybe 18 to 20 years old.
Exactly.
And I'm like, you were holding on to that pipe. I don't even want to say pipe dream because I mean, like, she was the embodiment of beauty, like as a young girl. And I mean, like, people still thought she was incredibly gorgeous, but I'm like, ma'am, you gotta let it go.
Let it
Because
go
this
a little
woman lives in a world of Delulu. Just a lot of it. This girl is living in her own Deluluville, and I just
Yes.
wow.
I like that description of Lulu. Elmilda, her brain is
She-
just a little bit Delulu, but it's okay. We understand it a little more through the show. I'm just like who she is, and just yeah, that's great. Her yeah, just everything about her.
She's insane. She's so insane.
And then we move right into Perfect Hand, which is one of like maybe the most interaction with like the audience, like most personal interactions with the audience. Where Ferdinand is bringing people in as his mom, as other people. Like it's always funny when that happens. And there's like the recording, like Tim's holding the camera and they're going through the audience, and most of the time people don't even know where his voice is coming from, and they're like, where'd it go? Like watching on people's faces, I'm like, he's over there, he's right there.
Another fun part about being on the floor, you just never know. Like,
have you been pulled in before? Have you been pulled in?
I have, and it was a little nerve-wracking because I wasn't expecting it, and I was just like, oh, hi. But yeah, I mean, like, Jose talks about all the time, like, that's his moment, like Ferdinand's moment of trying to find his perfect match, like his running mate, as he always says. And so he pulls all these women out, and he's being very charming, but it's also incredibly funny as well because I mean, like, he's trying to seduce the audience. I mean, like, oh, I made this promise to my mom, like, just pulling all the heartstrings, going out to the poor people and being like, I'm here for you. Like, what can I do for you? Like, kind of in a disingenuous way versus what we just saw from Ninoy. No, but still in a way that can still like tug at your strings a little bit.
Yeah, no, and I was gonna point out that one part about like how he's supposed to be a Japan war hero, but like everything about that was a lie, and like he made it all up, and like how that just like like it literally says that on the screen too, like on the screens around like Japanese war hero from the invasion of the Philippines during World War II. And like everything's a lie, but people see him as this figure, and like you said, he's seducing the audience to love him and be like, this guy's are gonna be our hero, he's gonna save us from what's going on. And yeah, it's like it's such an interesting thing of like he's trying to find his perfect hand to be this image of perfectness and of just being, he wants to be the best, and then that's gonna be a melody. Will be willing to help him out with this campaign and support him and be that like kind of like you said, I think earlier we were just mentioning, like in a way a little bit of a trophy wife, like she wanted to be that figure for people and just be nice and pretty and help out. And then Marcos is talking about helping people and all these things, like a stranger's only someone that you have yet to help, and it's like you think of his future and you're like, how many people did you really help in the end, of like
how many people did you steal money from in the end? So
yeah, it's like I don't know if I don't know if you were helping them in that way yet. And like also I love the choreography for the song too. Like I think I was always trying to like very like grounded, and then like I don't I
Hmm.
think it's, and then they like, it's very grounded choreography too, where it's like very like set
Hmm.
in stone, and just it just brings on who Marcos is as a person. He's very bold and very um
He's very calculating. I mean, like
yes,
he knew
and
Imelda was
confident.
gorgeous,
Yeah.
and he's like, you know what, this face, and like that's a couple of songs from now. This face is gonna help me get elected because I mean, you have this beautiful couple. They're trying to be the Jackie and John of the Philippines, a
Yeah.
beautiful young couple that is supposed to change the nation for the better. And that is very, very much like shown. Like, I mean, even in the history, I talk about the documentary a lot. It was so good. I mean, like he was really talking about how he wanted somebody beautiful, and he used to bring her on all his campaign rallies because she was just so pretty. And
Yes.
like pretty people get people's attention. And I mean, they had her sing, they had her dance,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of just paraded her around as a trophy wife for a long time.
Yeah.
So
And then after A Perfect Hand, we have 11 Days, which is like the party song. And
that
I
is the bop of the century,
Yes,
literally.
yes, such a bop. Where they knew each other for 11 days, and Marcos was like, I'm gonna marry you. We're gonna be together for
That
a long
song.
time.
Oh God,
And he, gave her two
Jesus.
roses. Like, I mean, you want to talk about like the symbolism of the roses and stuff? Like,
I mean, like every time that I think about it, I mean, like one is open, one is closed, one is the future, and one is my love. I mean, the future being open, it being prosperous, fortunately, and like one is my love being closed, like hoping that it'll bloom into something, which we watch and we see what it blooms into.
yeah,
But I mean, like the 11 days demographic was also kind of a way of showing that they were destined for each other because they were both such big supporters of like they were destined to be there. They were put in this place by God to be the leaders of the Philippines. So I mean, like them only knowing each other for 11 days and then getting married that quickly is supposed to also, in their mind, like just show this divine intervention that led them to be together to be the mother and father figure of the Philippines as they run for election.
yeah,
So,
and
but
then
it is
yeah,
also about,
yes. Oh my gosh, yes. And I love the line dancing part. Look at out to that, like
mm-hmm.
the club like. Like I always like I love that. And when on like the last few shows that I saw, Ariel would like look down at me and like when I was dancing and she would be like, "Yes." And then also like after the line dancing part, because there was a lot of audience participation in the show. The part when she's like, he just pulled out the paper and I signed on the line. And she's like, wait, what did I just do? Like, she doesn't even realize what she has just done because she's so young at that point, too.
Yeah.
And then I think we were both at the one, like at the very last show I was at, Nathan like dropped the pen by accident. I was like, shoot.
I didn't even notice that.
You didn't! You didn't! No!
I
But
didn't
like, I
even
think it
notice
was,
that.
I'm pretty sure it was the last show that I saw. Like, after she's like,
Uh-huh.
he dropped the pen into the floor, like on the other side of where we usually stand. They like dropped it into the audience. I
Oh
was like,
man.
shoot! And everyone was like, what do we do? I was like, no, Nathan! But it's okay. It's
That
okay.
reminds me of when I think Aaron, one of the few times that I saw him as Nino, his glasses came off a
Oh
couple
no!
times. Because I
And
remember like he used to
lenses.
like go hard like during the fabulous ones, like when they were kind of getting it a little bit. And I remember his glasses came off and somebody like just held them on the other side. So
Oh
yeah,
my I know, and Nathan's
very
glasses don't
a
even
lot
have
of movement.
lenses. Like they don't have lenses either.
Yeah.
I'm like they're just glasses. But yeah, and then yeah, 11 Days is like such a just like an energy song of like they're supposed to be there, and then they put on the barong and the wedding dress and everything. And then we go straight into When She Passed By, which is like just about the most heartbreaking song in the entire show. One of the most heartbreaking songs. There's a couple where
Yeah.
Estrella is just like on the outside of the gates, like she wasn't invited to her wedding, even though they had such a tight bond, like from their small provincial town, like they grew up together and they had such a close friendship, and then Imelda just left it behind. She like didn't want anything to do with that in a way, and Estrella's still like giving excuses for her, being like maybe there's some confusion, the mail maybe got messed up, like things happen,
Hmm.
giving her this grace that she didn't deserve in a way. Um,
Yeah.
she was so excited for her friend, and then you just forgotten by her after she started getting a little bit successful. Um, and she's just still so happy though. Like you can see it in in Melody's eyes when she's singing. She's just like so excited of like what's going on, and like I love the lyrics. I feel like I'm watching history living before my eyes. Like many years from now, we'll recall just how she looked when she passed by, and then like putting it in the context of just the show Here Lies Love, being like we're watching history being happening right now, and
Yeah.
like I've told you this, like someday in the future will be like we saw Here Lies Love in K-pop when they were first, on Broadway originally. Hopefully it'll, catch on more, and in these shows we appreciate them so much, and um someday we'll recall exactly how we felt in those moments and how much we loved it and how exciting it was at the time and how much we wanted to help save it. Um and yeah, just like that, putting that into a different perspective too always makes me sad. Yeah.
No, yeah. And talking about putting it in a different perspective, I mean, I like kind of felt this way. I think one of the most recent times that we went together, like I've been watching Melody as not just the friend of the nanny, but also just the Filipino people. And I mean, like kind of seeing her behind the gates, like you could think about the people from Leyte that are watching Imelda get married
Yeah.
and, all of her childhood friends, that she probably just left in the dust. Like that is a very real reality. She left them in the dust. And then when Melody runs with the gate all the way to the other side, I think the most recent time I've been kind of seeing it like this because the way that the staging is set up is in front of the gate, you have the churchgoers on the other side, and then you have the wedding party where you've got all the ensemble, you've got, Ariel and Jose, they're celebrating Imelda and Marcos's wedding. And then you've got us kind of on the outside. So you kind of feel what Estrella is talking about for a moment because, at the beginning, Estrella is on the other side and we're the churchgoers. We're inside of the wedding. And then the minute that Melody shifts over, we're kind of watching on the outside because you're just watching Melody. And then we kind of all go inside the church, we're watching her. And then it really kind of hit me like when I was watching, I think it was when Carol was on for Christina's track,
Hmm.
when she's like, "Did you see me outside? Did you see me wave?" Like whoever is on for Corey's track actually lifts their hand is like, "Did you see me wave?" And you kind of get that nice little glimpse that Estrella's character is more than just playing the friend. She's also the Filipino people. So I talk about that a lot because that really just kind of changes like kind of changes the meaning of the show just a little bit.
Yeah.
And it makes it sometimes hit you in the gut just a little bit harder,
Yeah.
especially in Why Don't You Love Me? So yeah, very heartbreaking is very beautiful. Melody is just top tier, and every time breaks my heart every single time.
Yeah, and she's been with this role for so long, and so it's like she really knows
Hmm.
this character inside and out and is able to give such an honest performance of just, just the heartbreak of like your friend is, it's kind of like that feeling of betrayal a little bit. Like I'm just I was
Hmm.
there for you for so many years, and then now it's like what happened to that? Um, and Imelda has no
And
idea.
like what kind of sucks is like you get that first little like hint of betrayal, but it's still kind of like she's still the same person she's always been, so it's fine. Like she would never do this to me.
Yeah.
And so we as the audience are kind of like, well, you know what? Maybe that's true. Maybe she just forgot. Because I mean, like the minute that she comes out, she's like, I heard that you got married. Like a lot of people in the audience are like, oh. And then like when you hear her making excuses, you kind of like, well, you know what? Maybe she has a point. Like maybe she just forgot. Like her and Imelda were super close. And then by the time you get to Solano Avenue, you're kind of like, oh nope, like she's just the worst. Because I mean, like this is twice now. Like fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's the forgetting of where she came from. Um, and yeah, just trying to like Imelda's just forgetting where she came from and trying to move forward without that, which is like you can't move forward without acknowledging your past. And so it's
exactly.
just so fascinating to watch her do that. And then you go straight into Sugar Time Baby, which is like little song like comes out just like talking about how they met and
Hmm.
how they did all this stuff and they're just like
Hmm.
on their honeymoon and Marcos's.
Really kind of manipulating how they want it to be told. And I mean, like the press attache role, like I don't know if you've watched Jay and Jose like the last little bit, but I started watching it because like right after Christina like takes the picture
Yeah,
because they
redo.
messed up the picture and that's always a laugh. But when Jose is like, you never know, like Jose actually points at the press attache and the press attache gives a thumbs up as if to be like, we're on the same page. We're gonna make this what it needs to be.
Wait, do you see
And
this?
I remember I was like, what?
Did you see the screen just now? I
Yeah.
gave you a thumb up. I was like, but I had
Oh
no.
my God. No, it gave me a thumb up.
Yes, I like when you did that. I don't know if how to do it, but it gave you a little thumbs up.
I don't either.
I
That's
don't even know how
amazing.
they did
That's
that. But
cool.
yeah, I I got distracted. But yeah, I did not realize that they do that. And it's a way of like again, they like paid reporters and news people to like paint them in a good light. And so it's like they need to
Hmm.
be in a good light. That's why they retake that picture and all this other stuff. Um and I mean this song
Yeah.
isn't as deep as like the other ones. This one's weird. Like it's a little deep, but like not like quite at the one with the other ones, but like it's like you never know where love is found. Like they're just like, oh, this just happened. Like this just happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, this is literally them like orchestrating it to be, oh my gosh, this whirlwind marriage. It was destiny.
Yeah.
They're painting them out to be the JFK and Jackie. They literally say that in the middle
Yeah,
of the
wait, there are
song, like,
Jackie
and
and
the whole
John.
world can see they're Jackie and John. And I mean, like, Jose talks a lot about, like, in interviews, how he'll take like little moments where he's trying to like control and manipulate Imelda. But I mean, like in that moment, you can kind of see him control and manipulate the press, which is a lot of what
Mm.
they were doing to like help spread misinformation for so
Oh,
long.
yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely like not as like text contextually maybe as like deep as maybe like Solano Avenue or When She Passed By, but like if you watch, it's like a whole
Little
different
tiny little.
song a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we go straight into Walk Like a Woman. Let's talk. No, I heard you and your friend talking about the Do It. His lyric,
And
the lyric is he like they say he taught me how to do it like and then
and that line
this
always gets a
little,
laugh
she
every
has
single
this little
time.
like like smile on her face like it's so funny
And
whenever
it's always like supposed to be, yeah, and it's always supposed to be that laugh because I mean, like they're in Imelda's bedroom, like you've got Marcos, you got Jose standing there in just swim trunks, and you've got Ariel in like a bathrobe. So like you can only put two and two together
yeah
and
yeah
be like, oh, because I mean, like they're on their honeymoon tour, so it's like you're getting a laugh, but you're also getting the insight of he is kind of manipulating and coercing her into being this political running mate.
yeah he's like
I
guiding.
mean, like when I was watching, yeah, when I was watching the documentary, I remember she was talking about how when he was like doing his whole political thing, that she was like getting very anxious. And I
Mm,
mean, like the nod even of when like she's starting to take pills was kind of going back to when she was like, he's talking about, quitting his whole campaign thing for me, which is probably very much a lie.
yeah
But he wanted to get her on his side. Everything that that man did was very calculated. And
yeah
so, the New York doctor, bright yellow pills he gave me, like, and you see Nathan or whoever's in Nathan's track, like share look with Jose, and you're like,
mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah you're good no
sorry, I just heard your message. No, yeah, you're good. Jose's track, and you're just like, oh, okay. So he's basically teaching her like how to keep going from this. But yeah, that's that's my little take on it.
Yeah. No, I mean this song, I think Sarah said this is her favorite song on the whole show. Um and like as Imelda, what like she just loves it so much and like how much nuance there is in it and like she's like I'm so lucky to be, married to this man who loves me and then she's like, "Wait, what do I need to do like to do for the love of this man, because I mean, even in Here Lies Love, she's like, and in Child of the Philippines and everything, in Opposite Attraction, she's like, we all need love and to be loved in return. So she's like needing all of that love from Marcos because he's gonna give it to her if
Mm-hmm.
she is this perfect wife for him. And like I think in the part too, I don't remember if you touched on this or not, but like when she's talking about like if he loved me on the day we met, then why must I be someone else? Like it's kind of that thing too.
Yeah.
They chose you, but then you still feel like, am I good enough for them? And that's exactly like what she's
Mm-hmm.
feeling, and just like it's for, and this is the first time we really hear that it's for love, like um the it's for love like kind of theme that continues throughout the entire
She
show.
goes through in the
She's like,
show.
she's like,
Yeah.
it's all for love. It's literally, to her, it's all for love. Like in your head, there's nothing wrong with your heart. Like her heart is telling her that it's for love. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Then
you
you got Don't You
exactly.
Agree, Pretty Face.
Yes, yes. And then we go straight into Don't You Agree, Pretty Face, where Maria Luisa is like talking about their little tour they're doing of like presenting themselves in their campaign tour of just when Marcos is trying to get elected. Um and then yeah, like yeah, don't you agree? Like sometimes we got to do this and we got to do all these things so that we can be loved by the people. Um and then this is like really when you can see the manipulation with Marcos. Way
Mm-hmm.
more than before, because he kind of makes he's like manipulating her and then she becomes a manipulator herself. And so he's like, well, you reach into your pockets to show us that you care, like trying to ask all these poor people to give money, when it's like Marcos is also like eventually he will steal money from the people. Um
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just like you're just thinking, and Imelda's like still figuring everything out, and then like the choreography where she goes like, like, and then he moves her hand over. Yeah, he moves her hand over so that she's like to what he wants from her in that moment, and that we can show the whole wide world that we have a pretty face. Um,
Yeah, that call back to, him finding his perfect hand. Like he just gives into that vanity. I mean, like talking about we have a pretty face, and she's really getting into it. I mean, you kind of watch like as she walks down the walkway and you kind of see, Imelda get a little bit stronger in her approach. I mean, like even going as far as like when she did the choreography again, stopping him before she
and
can
then
move her hand because she moves it herself.
she does it herself. Yeah, yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
and
it's a very, very interesting play.
And I love how like another theme choreography wise is like when she does like the kind of two fingers thing with her face. Like I don't remember, I don't think she does it in this song, but it's definitely like two like that kind of, it's, and then they do the whole chin thing in
Mm-hmm.
Sugar Time Baby, I think. Um and just like that idea of like they care so much about their perception and how they look. And then she's like, a center for the arts. Like she's doing all these good things, but it's like, how much of this are they going to live up to? And then at the end,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, Marcos leads the election by landslide, and like everyone's cheering, and then all the people who actually know what's going on are not, and you can tell. And like,
Yeah, you
I know I
see
stopped
Moses up in the
cheering.
back.
Yeah, I'm like, we stopped cheering after like a couple, after me going a couple times. I was like, no, this isn't something I need to cheer for anymore. Like, yeah, you want to feel the Filipino people, but sometimes you're just like this isn't, you're not going to play into that anymore when they get elected. And then everyone's just excited that they have been elected, and getting into that. And it's just crazy. Of like, you
Yeah.
don't, most of the people in the audience don't know what they're going to become.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is like when you can tell a lot of people that already know the history, like nobody's really cheering. But one of the things that I have noticed, if ever you come back, or like when there's another iteration, there's actually like you watch Moses, he literally just kind of makes like this really defeated kind of motion when
Yeah.
he finds out that they're elected. And I just remember like my jaw was on the floor and I was like it's just subtle things, like it's that subtle little foreshadowing that if you don't know like the story, if you watch Moses, you can kind of be like, okay, well maybe this isn't a good thing that he's getting
Yeah.
elected. So
Yeah.
because I mean, like he is the person that's supposed to be leading and guiding us through this whole show, and if he's saying,
Don't
this isn't a good
care.
thing, like maybe we should listen to him. But of
Yeah.
course, we're so overwhelmed by all the confetti.
And the handshakes,
So,
the handshakes are always funny
mhm.
too. Like people are like yeah, shake, I do it too. Like shake my hand, like that's what you do, and you're in on these campaign trails of just like you want as many supporters as
Mhm.
you can, and they gain that for a minute there. Yeah, and then we go straight into Dancing Together, which is another song that so much nuance again of like she names all these people that everyone like knows who these people are, and like all these the Queen of Spain, or like what was it, I mean,
Andy Warhol.
yeah, Andy Warhol, Rockefeller, Brown, like Picasso, like saw the Picasso's memoirs, um and like all these people that we know who they are, and she's like affluent with all of them, and dancing with them and just partying. Well, maybe the people in the Philippines aren't. Um, yeah.
I mean, like she literally talks about later being like, beautiful women in beautiful homes just out of reach if your skin's colored brown. I mean, literally, that's kind of like a callback to Here Lies Love. I mean, she's in this position of power. She was just elected, the first lady of the Philippines, and she still feels like she hasn't gotten enough because now she's over here. And I mean, like she's seeing that, primarily non POCs have all this money and all this wealth, and she hasn't gotten it yet, and she's just like, well, crap, half the
Yeah.
battle has not been fully won yet.
Yeah. No, and like she's just
So,
dancing with them, and then they like, and then she kind of has like a little bit of a moment to herself
nervous
where she
breakdown.
repeats all the things like, he taught me like just repeating all those things to herself and calming herself down, patting herself with toilet paper. Um, until Maria Luisa like comes out and sings again. And so, yeah, it's just like such a
Blows off the whole
spectacle of a
rafters.
song. Yeah, and spectacle of a song. Like with her golden dress, and like I think you saw me when I was doing it. I kept trying to get the little fallen sequin things from
Uh-huh.
I have like three of them now. I put them in a plastic bag and stuck it in my binder.
As you should.
Because I saw
As
it,
you should.
I was like, that's one of the little things on Imelda's golden dress. Like
Hmm.
they're gonna fall off, and so I like grabbed some. I like made sure my hand was kind of like moist so I could like pick it up and like stuck it in the back of my phone so like I could have
As
it.
you should. As you should.
Yes, no, but like this song, I mean, and then even at the beginning with the guys, like, well, everyone just like, oh, that image.
Studio 54.
Yeah, Spiritual Night at Studio 54. Like, and just how that has the effect on the audience is just everyone's like, yeah, let's dance, let's have fun. And then you're like, and then when we get into, well, we'll do the next one. We'll do the next song next time because that's a whole lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But
Whew.
yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah. That
Well,
was a lot, but that was fun.
yes, we're gonna take a break for maybe a couple days. Who knows? I got a lot of stuff to do, but we'll be back. So stay
Sure.
tuned. Hey guys, we're back. It's about 2 weeks after we recorded the first part. And since then, Here Lies Love has officially closed, and we have cried a lot of tears. But we're back and ready to talk about the songs more, and talk about closing, and talk about just what this show means for us and what we hope it means for other people as well. So, hey Aaliyah, how you doing? We're back.
Hi, Ashley. I'm okay. We're here. I am okay.
You have your Here Lies Love shirt on. I have my disco ball necklace, and you have your Jokoi hat again, mahal kita. With just everything that you need for a great Here Lies Love podcast. Um, And so, yeah, I think first we should definitely talk about closing. I was not able to be there because I was back in LA with my family for Thanksgiving. But Aaliyah, of course, was able to be there pretty much that entire final weekend. So, I don't know, just you want to talk about that a little bit, what it was like being there for the final few shows and just to experience Here Lies Love for hopefully not the last time.
Hopefully not. I somehow ended up there every performance that week, which I was very grateful for. I didn't even think I would be able to do that, but the last like 5 shows, well, the last 4 shows that I was at were very energetic. The crowd was just boisterous. The floor was jam-packed. It was a very emotional show. Like, I know the last performance when Moses was like, sing along, if you know the words to God Draw Straight, like everyone was just sobbing. Um, I mean, it was a very emotionally charged last few days, at least the days that I went. I know that at least like for me, it was like I it it was like kind of that double-edged sword that you feel like when you go to a show and like you know that it's closing. A lot of people will come and see the show and be like, "Oh my gosh, like I waited this long, like I hate that I waited until the last day," because weirdly enough, it was a lot of people's first time seeing the show was
Yeah.
that performance. And I kind of wanted to apologize and be like, "Yo, like I'm so sorry. Like you're not gonna be able to hear like 90% of the show because it's gonna be a lot of screaming at parts that aren't normally like being screamed to." Like the first part of American Troglodyte, I don't even think I I heard the first like few verses of the songs. I don't think I heard anything until they were like, Americans are going to discotheques, because it was just like screaming and dancing
Yeah.
the whole time. But I mean, like people were singing from the top of the show. I mean, like Here Lies Love, like a lot of people were singing along, and it was very cathartic. Um, it, I feel like that's like the best like
Yeah.
answer that I can give. It was a very emotional show. Like it already is very emotionally charged, like the source material in the show itself. But it was like tenfold. And I mean, like when Moses was saying his like final lines, like democracy is under threat, like you could kind of feel the even more urgency, like in this tone where it's like this is hopefully not the last time this will ever be said, like on a Broadway stage or in New York, like that democracy is under threat. Like we need to step it up, and democracy is only strong as people. Like, yeah, that's a very hard conversation to have, but at the end of the day, it's what needs to be had. Like, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Hmm.
Um, but it was a very, it was like, I'm very grateful that I was there. It was very emotional, but I'm glad that I was, able to experience it and be with, some other fans and be there to support the cast, and just super excited for what comes next. And I am hoping and praying that November 26th, 2023 will not be the last time Here Lies Love graces a Broadway stage or the New York theater stage in general.
Yeah. Definitely. It sounds like Here
Hmm.
Lies Love on the last show was like how I was every single time I saw it. I'm just like that energy
Yes,
of
yes.
just
Like
wanting, yeah,
it
just
was
enjoy
so
it.
wild, and there was, yeah, it was so wild and it was so energetic, and I was like, wow, like some people that unfortunately may never get the chance to see this show again, like at least for right now.
Mhm.
But I mean, like, I'm glad that they got to, like, they got to see the
Yeah.
beauty that this show had and the Trojan horse that it was. Because I mean, like, yeah, like it was under the guise of like a disco party, but I mean, you learned a lot when you walked out of that theater.
Yeah.
So
And how did it
yeah,
emotionally, how is it comparing like that closing to K-pop closing? Because we were both there at K-pop closing, and that was
yeah.
I was
Uh,
like wreck for that one, where it was just like this that help of just like wanting to like love it so much. I mean, I know both of us love those two shows so much.
so I figured out like right when closing had been announced that literally the day after, which was November 27th, was the full. It would have been the anniversary of when K-pop first opened. So it
Hmm.
was like salt in the wound,
Yeah.
because you would think that after a year, um, things would be different in regards to, you know, the Broadway community and their view on BIPOC stories that aren't, the safe options. And unfortunately, it is the same story. But Here Lies Love having 150 shows is not something that needs that's progress.
Yeah.
And I refuse to believe that that is the end for that show. I mean, like too many people loved that show. That show has like, I'm not even going to say like had, because it still has an impact that has left so many theater goers. Like I literally remember seeing like two young white men being like, I didn't know anything about this story, but it's making me want to go and look up about it. Like these men are not Filipino by any design, like looking at them at least, and we're interested in learning more about the story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a step in the right direction. But I am very disheartened to see that unfortunately nothing has changed,
Yeah.
even though there are people that are claiming that it has. So
No, I feel
yeah.
that. No, and what you're saying about like I guess also our effect on people, like when we went to the show, like we would talk to people and like be so happy about it and tell them how excited they should be. Like that last time that I was
Mhm,
there, I remember talking to that like young couple next to me, and they were just the like
mhm,
girl was so excited. And then when the show started, she was like, "What's going on?" And like hearing her do like say all those things. And then I don't know
mhm.
if you got to watch the talks at Google yet, but there was a
Oh my
little.
god, yeah.
Did you watch it?
I watched a little bit of it. I haven't been able to like sit down. I think it's like an hour long. So like
Very
it's
long.
on
No,
my watch list. I just haven't been able to sit down and like actively watch it though.
yeah, no, but like this woman who I didn't know she was gonna do the talk at Google, but like I literally was watching this. I was like doing my hair. I was like blow drying my hair, getting ready for the day, whatever. And then she starts talking, and I'm like, is she talking about me? I was like, wait a minute. I think she is. And I remember talking to her in the basement near the like step in
Mhm.
her and her friend being like, did you guys get to see it? Yeah, like, oh, are you on the floor? I'm so excited. Like all those things that I do. I'm like, I was just being myself. Um, and then to hear like her like seeing me experience the show, and she said that at the end, that was my last time seeing it as well. That she was also there, and she was talking about how I was at the very center in the very front, like crying my eyes out, pretty much, like just bawling so much. And just like how that made her feel of like one, like the story could be affecting her, the performances could be affecting her. Two, like
I
maybe
did watch that.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe this is her story, which is not, but like
Yeah.
it was maybe her idea, like of maybe this is my family's story. And it is friends' stories to me. Um and then three, like she's just really sad and doesn't want to let it go. And I was like, it's kind of a mixture of all of those things that I was really feeling in the moment. And then she was saying how like I just had no shame. I was like just crying. I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I was
Yeah.
feeling in the moment. And she was looking at me, I guess, during that. And I was just like, what happened? Like, oh my God, I couldn't even imagine. And then Jose and Ariel were both like, oh wow. Like, I don't think they knew it was me. And then Jose was like, maybe I kicked her in the head. I was like, oh my God. It's so funny. He's like, maybe I
Honestly, if he
kicked
kicked me
her
in
in
the
the
head, I'd be like, if he kicked me in the head, I'd be like, thank you, Jose.
head.
It is an honor.
Well, I mean, Shay
No, but sometimes,
They accidentally kicked me at one point, like just my hand or something. And so that happened. But yeah, just to
yeah,
like
that's good.
yeah, but to hear that like happen and to hear like the I guess the effect I had on her of just like my joy for the show and hear how it made her feel was just very special because I was like, you usually don't get to hear that because you meet these strangers at a show, you tell them about it, and then you leave and never talk to them again. I'm sure there were so many people like
Yeah.
that for you, but in reality, they probably went home and maybe talked about you to their family or something. Like, oh, like there was this super fan. She'd been so many times and she was just telling me all about it and was so excited to see it. Like, that's a thing too of like theater goers, it's not just like the view of the show. It's like when you meet people at shows, it's like that is an experience in itself. And what makes shows really special is when you get to connect over it with other people. And so I just thought like hearing her say all those things, I was like, yeah, that's me, guys. um,
So
just
I
be
don't know if I ever told you, like comparing this to somebody that you didn't like know, um, was watching you. So like there was one weekend, I think it was the final Friday performance of K-pop. Me and Rob were there, and there was a special audience member there. Um, and the person that was sitting next to that special audience member came up to Rob because Rob was like in the front row, and I think I was
uh-huh.
like maybe in the second or third row. But they went up to Rob and they were like, I want you to know the person next to me was watching you the whole time and they were just enjoying watching you. And do you know
Oh,
who that person was?
who was it?
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Ah! That's
And
crazy.
like
Oh my gosh.
we both knew that they were in the audience, but it was like when he found out, he was like, I didn't even know what to say at that point.
That's so fun. No, because like with K-pop and Here Lies Love, you can watch other people watch the show, which I think is so special.
Yeah.
And how it's just like these different opportunities to just like watch other people experience this joy. Or like one thing I always looked out for was during Child of the Philippines, during like maybe the second or like I don't know how many courses there are. One of the not the first course, but maybe one of the later ones was when people joined in and started singing like I am a child of the Philippines,
Yeah.
and I was like yes, like people are catching
That
on.
moment really hit the last performance. It definitely did.
Yeah, you're just like
So
this is it. You're like that's the experience of theater is like when you get to experience it with other people too. And man, oh my gosh. That story with Lynn and Rob, that is actually kind of crazy. But
no, that was hilarious. I just thought about it. Like I think about it every now and then, but like you talking about the Google Talks, I was like, I just remembered that.
it's
So I'm gonna
true.
have to text
It's
him.
so true how people watch other people see shows and like with Here Lies Love, I would always look across and sometimes lock eyes with different people and just be like, hey, like I'm also
I see you vibing. Like
I
we're on the same vibes here. And then
remember
it's even
saying
funnier, like when you
yes.
walk out and they're like, I watched you watch me dance along, and I was like, yeah, I know, like we were getting it.
Yes, no,
So,
such a moment. Or like during
uh,
Please Don't when I'm like jumping up and down like crazy person, and then people I can tell are like, what is she doing? And it's so funny to me, but I like
mm.
don't care. I'm like like Here Lies Love is a
I'm
place
just here
I
for the vibes.
may be fearless. I am fearless on the dance floor.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like, please don't is one of those last moments where you're like, I'm gonna
Eh,
dance along.
yeah.
And then
And that gets real.
yeah,
And we'll talk about that in
so
but now since we've
yeah.
done a little recap of how we're feeling, I think it's time to go through each of the songs again. So we left
Yeah.
off, the last one we left off was Dancing Together, and we talked about that a lot and how fun that
Mhm.
song is. And then the next one is just a tiny little song called The Fabulous One. That has pretty
Yeah.
much changed my life just in that song and was just about like the most incredible performance that you've ever seen on a Broadway stage, just in that song. You want to
Yeah.
go first?
Oh my gosh. I mean, when I was at the B-roll, I remember hearing that song and then seeing the imagery. Like I guess we could talk about the imagery now. But the whole song, like the kind of premise behind the song, like when you're there, it starts off with Nino being interviewed by the incomparable Sarah Kay. And he's doing his first of many like public like speaking out against the Marcoses. And this is kind of set in like a presentation style, where he has like it took me, I don't know how many performances to realize he has like a PowerPoint clicker
Oh,
in
really?
his
You didn't
hand.
notice that? I noticed that
Um,
the first time how he was
no.
like doing like the slides presentation.
I'm like so I just keep looking there, and then I look at like whether it's Conrad or whether it's Aaron. I'm like, wow. And I'm like just taking in everything that they're saying. And then there's so much happening. And then
Yeah.
like I happen to look, I'm like, oh,
You're like, he's got a little
but it's
liquor.
yeah, I'm like, oh wow, didn't even notice that. But he's basically speaking to the people. And you have all these images of Imelda out with, famous leaders, she's partying, and then you have these images of the people in the Philippines, like people that are living in squalor while she's out here partying. And then one of the moments that I think about the most is that they talk about the 169 construction workers that were literally found buried
Yeah.
underneath the one of many huge debacles that she made. And one of the things that I think about a lot was watching when the Pantheon, like the money just grows higher and higher and
Yeah.
higher. I don't remember the final amount, but I know it was like over $100 million.
Yeah.
And like you just see it growing higher and higher and higher. Um, and I literally remember being at the B roll because was just so confused. I was like, am I supposed to cheer? Like, I feel like and that's what's so interesting about like this show where it's like moments during Please Don't, or moments like, well, by the Fabulous Ones, you kind of are in this weird place of, if you don't know the history, you're like, what's really going on with her? Like, is this like a she's like got this really bad thing? But of course,
Yeah.
like by the time you get to Please Don't, you realize like she's horrible.
Yes.
Um, if you don't know the history. If you know the history, like, you know she's horrible from the get-go.
Yeah.
But I just remember sitting here and being like, this woman is even worse than I thought.
Yeah.
Because like I'm
I
seeing all these pictures and I just
I wish they had released that B-roll because I think that would have brought people in just because of like the sheer power that Conrad had in that performance. Like instead of, I don't know, just like I wish that they had released that somewhere because I only used it in the trailer. And I'm like, people needed to hear those like lines being said to know that it's not a Marcos Topologist show, I think.
what's so crazy, I don't think I ever told this to you. I was sitting next to a woman. I don't remember what time this was, but I was sitting next to a woman whose sister was pro Marcos. And
Oh,
she said that she refused to see Here Lies Love because she knew that it was anti Marcos.
oh, okay.
So what I think is interesting is that I think that people that did support them knew that it was very anti Marcos. But of course, like if you kind of see the name and you see the title, like I've seen people that are anti Marcos that are like, oh well, I don't know, like it's glamorizing. But I did think it was interesting that people that are pro that administration that are like, I don't want anything to do with this because we know it's against them.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so fascinating because it's like the people who actually do know, and then the people who don't know make assumptions and then don't really.
yeah, that's one of the things that really hurts theater, when people make assumptions on what it is before they see it. But that's another soapbox that I'm not going to touch on right now.
Yes, that is another thing. But
Yeah, that's another thing.
but yes, oh my gosh, Fabulous One. That was maybe one of the songs that made me first start liking Here Lies Love. Because with K-pop, it was Shiga Nangbi. I saw the like B-roll for that, whatever, and then I fell in love. And then with this song, I watched Conrad perform this, and I was like, the whole show, I was like, yeah, this is great. And then this song came, and then I just my mind was blown of like what the show actually was. And I was in the mezzanine for the first time seeing the show, like rear, but like front of the rear. And so Conrad is right there in like if the mezzanine is back here, Conrad is like right here
Hmm.
talking to you. Where the first
Yeah.
half of the song he's not even actually really looking at the floor at all. Um but he is just like addressing the mezzanine and addressing the people, and talking about all these like crazy things that is going on in the Philippines that Imelda Marcos is ignoring, um, about how like what he says, people barely surviving, they're living in shanties, like things like that, where it's just people are, like you said, in squalor and poverty, and Imelda doesn't have a care in the world, and she's partying, and if you're on the floor, she comes through and is on that in the platform in
Hmm.
the center. It just
She's
is.
literally like,
She's got a martini glass. She's in a fur coat. She's
oh,
got a sparkly dress on, and it's just that moment. You're just like, okay, this is what the show's actually about. And
hmm
for Conrad, he makes everyone really get into it. And Aaron too, obviously, when they each respectively play Ninoy. Um, and when he comes down to the middle, and he's like just repeating the words "rise up" over and over again, and he's like, giving the mic to different like sides of the room, and then he's like jump, like having everybody jump and just like, raise your fists in the air and do that kind of thing. It's like one of the most powerful moments in the entire show because it's just kind of like it's almost like a rally of just support for Ninoy and um the political party and the liberals. It literally says like liberals on the screens and all that, where you kind of get like what he's trying to say, and just like we're gonna rise up like the people. That's when maybe the first time you're really like, okay, this is about the people, um in what
hmm
that means. And
yeah,
then,
but like it's the Fabulous Ones is like also such a callback. I have like two things, but I'm gonna let you finish your thought first.
oh, I was just gonna
Um,
say that, when he's like coming down, and then he does the whole his like crazy high note, and he's just like goes to the front, and then they all like do that together. Some of them are doing
And
Laban.
then the Laban song.
Yeah, some of them are doing Laban, which we'll get into again later. And then Conrad and or Ninoy is doing like a fist or something. Um, you also do the same thing in support of them, and you're like, okay, this is maybe who we should be supporting instead. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought about like two things, but I mean like that whole song, like I thought about that like of course like when you go see it so many times, like you start to notice things. But that whole song is also kind of a little nod back to opposite attraction. Because one of the things he tells Imelda is, you know me, I gotta speak my mind no matter what the cost. And literally he repeats that I have risen at the risk of her fury, and I have risen at the risk of her scorn. Literally knowing that he's saying all this and she's going to get mad and she's going to be infuriated, but he's like, I told you from the jump that I gotta speak my mind. But one thing that I will never forget, and this was Aaron performing. I think this was the night you left. So that
Oh,
Sunday night.
yes, yes.
Um, I think it was the last speech. Oh wait, this is during a different song. But I'll talk about that one later. But like the way that certain people were reacting was always like very positive towards Nino, because I mean like there's like that song is just kind of like a rallying phone, not like it is a rallying cry. Because I mean, like we are not going to sit here and be silent while you go around partying and showing us that you don't really care about us. And I mean, like
Yeah.
you have all of these political leaders that are just sitting around here and being with Imelda. And I don't know. Oh, that's my mom liking all of my Instagram stories, apparently.
Oh, mom.
But you have Imelda literally out here laundering money, stealing money, being like, "Oh, I'm having so much fun at the Studio 54." I almost said 54 Below, and that wasn't even a thing yet. Partying and going on all these yachts and cruises. Meanwhile, there are people that are dying,
Hmm.
and I just, yeah. But I got really early on my next point, but there's that song is just literally incomparable. It's literally amazing.
Yeah, no, and
So
just
yeah.
I don't know, it's just such an experience to watch that song. Like there's no other way to explain it. It's just like an experience, and you're just like what's going on? You're like, this is when it gets real. Like it's starting to finally get real in a way.
And I
Just
mean, like at that point, there are some people that, and it's so interesting. Like you can tell the people that have no idea about this history, and then you have the people that know about it, and then you have the people that are like in between. But there's some people that don't know anything about it. Like they see Imelda and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like she's so gorgeous." But they're also like, "What's she doing? Like, doesn't she literally was just talking about how she cares about people eating like they don't survive on bread or bread alone, and now you're out here partying and you don't care." But of course, like she still seduced the majority of the audience, like her and Jose or Roy or Aaron, whoever was playing Marcos at the time, and then Ariel or JG, like as Imelda and Marcos, they have seduced the audience to a point that they've made them believe like, oh, like this is no big deal, and
yeah.
then it becomes a very big deal very
Oh,
quickly.
yeah, and I think like I said, like it's really is just the beginning of what the rest of the show is going to be. In a way, that's like the turning point, I think. Like after Imelda's
Hmm.
done her little dancing, like quick change and partying and doing all the fun stuff, you're like, okay, this is when it's really getting real, and you kind of think that's the first moment that you finally understand maybe what the show is trying to say. Not that the show is trying to make you feel a
Hmm.
certain way, but due to the facts, you feel a certain way. Because I mean, the two songs before it is "Don't You Agree," "Pretty Face," and then "Dancing Together," where it's like their election, and you're like, "Yay!" or you're not, or you're not celebrating them, and then moving into "Dancing Together" again, another like more fun-ish song. And then Fabulous One is like, okay, let's make a turning point here, and then never you don't go back after that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that's one of the moments in the show where like you really see like where the production is like, hey, we are in support of the people power revolution. We are in support of the people. Like it is very blatant and it's showing that they are very anti Marcos. Like from that point on, like you are like, okay, like maybe Miss Girl is not as great as as we thought. And she is not, nowhere near. She's literally horrendous.
yeah.
But we see that later on.
And then
We
right
see that later
after that, we got Men Will Do Anything. So we get to know that Dovey Beams and Marcos have been having a little affair for, was it 2 years? And they have a baby together. And you just see like Imelda kind of crumble at the news and just not knowing what to do with herself. Um, and then obviously Maria
on. And
Luisa
then
comes
Maria
out.
Luisa.
Yeah, Jasmine or
Hmm.
Shay, whoever, or Sarah, whoever is playing Maria Luisa. Um, just comes out there and kind of screams her thoughts at him, like out at the
Like
audience.
that's really the moment where like you realize that Maria Luisa is also Imelda's inner voice.
Yes, yes,
Like I remember my jaw was on the floor the first time I heard that song because I was like, oh my God, like
me too. Yeah,
what is this song? And I remember being like, men will indeed do anything. But I also was just like, this is crazy. Like that whole scene beforehand was crazy. Like when you're listening to Dovey Beams being like, with me being 20 and you being 60, like that whole thing
the
is just
audience
gross. Like
reaction.
the actual transcript.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh my God, that transcript is quite interesting to hear. And then the audience reaction
like
to the 20
even
and
is even
60,
worse.
the line of like me being
Hmm.
20 and you being 60, the reaction that the audience has to that like always gets me and always makes me laugh because everyone's like, "Oh, what is going on here?" Um,
And it starts like immediately when they realize that like they're cheating. They're like, oh, what? And
yeah.
I'm like,
So this is also
mm.
why, like, I was like, "Oh, maybe children shouldn't always see Here Lies Love." Like, maybe this is a more
No,
adult.
I mean, I
Like,
remember there was this Filipino family that was in front of me, and I remember they actually shielded the boys' like eyes from
thank
seeing,
God.
Julia or Carol or Renee that were doing that track at the time,
Yeah.
to just give them some um still preserve some of that childish innocence, but they still learned a lot from that history. I mean, like
Yeah.
I just oof. But I remember that documentary. I mean, like they Marcos had a lot of like lovers, but I remember someone had said that he never had like a mistress, and
Mm.
then all of that stuff came out. But Imelda was not happy,
Yeah.
and I think that David Byrne talked a lot about how he did a lot of research, and I think that when the fact that Dovey Beams made it public was like her final straw, essentially. And
Yeah.
so, since we don't really get to see like what her thought process was, we can kind of infer like she was pissed because I mean, like she was already not happy with the fact that he didn't necessarily have a kept woman, but he wasn't faithful either.
Yeah.
So, like this being the woman that he's apparently slept with for 2 years and now it's public and she looks like a fool,
Yeah.
you know.
She stayed with him too. She never like they didn't get a divorce ever. And like, she didn't leave. She was just like obviously humiliated and then just kept on going. But like that didn't make Imelda leave at any point. Um, and I think like the interesting line is like nothing you can do to me.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what that means of like she's like I'm just gonna keep going like despite the humiliation and like all that's happened to her. It's like you can't touch.
Literally leading to Star and Slave.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Literally.
it's just this entire song also is crazy with Jasmine. I don't even know how to explain it. And then to have all of the Dovey Beams like on like Imelda, and you can see Ariel's like her, she's just like having a breakdown on stage pretty much of like all
Hmm.
of them coming in. It's just like very overwhelming for her to experience and then watch. Um, and then leading into Star and Slave, you said. Just the journey that that song is in itself. Like each of Imelda's songs I think I was talking to Sarah about it when we did the podcast. Her favorite song was like Walk Like a Woman because she said it's like a three-act play in one song. Like I think that's how it is with every single one of Imelda's songs. How there's just like so much nuance in it. And they're so hard to sing. Like I sing it just like
Yeah.
I can try like to do it. It's so hard. Like I can do it in a way, but it's just like what's going on half the time. But
Yeah.
it's just it's crazy what this track is and what the role is. Um and then yeah, how Imelda's
Yeah.
kind of
Star
like
and Slave is oof.
yeah, I don't even know. Just like what they she says, their faith and affection, like she's coming back and she's like, okay, now
Yeah, I mean,
my life is over and I'm gonna serve my country. That's what she's
yeah, her personal
doing.
life. I mean, like literally she is killing her personal life and is like, I'm about to be the
The
star
star.
and slave for these people. And I literally remember like when I was watching that documentary for the first time and like heard her say and watched her do, I am the star and the slave of the Philippines. And I remember being like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Because for her, she was like, they need something to believe in. They need to believe that they can achieve this dream, that they can be wealthy, up to do if they just do a little bit of hard work like she did.
Hmm.
Um, and it's at that point where that's the point where really Imelda comes out and seduces the audience. Because I mean, like, as you remember, she comes out, she shakes hands, she
Yeah. She goes
touches
to the
faces, and
audience.
she's like, and it's also like manipulation part one, where she's like, and it's because of you that happiness lives here. Being like, listen, like everything I do, I'm doing it for you. And almost in a way of like, you should be grateful because
Yeah.
I'm giving up my life to serve you,
Yeah. No,
which
and
is
also what I think is
kind
so
of the premonition,
fascinating,
premonition.
well, it's so fascinating that I didn't realize when I saw it for the first time, and then I started listening to it, like after the second time, and then I came back and I was like, wait, there's more lyrics that they added in the song. Where it's like
Yeah.
it's the sun, like now it's because of you that happiness lives here. Every step that I take, everything that I do, and your love for me, I will treasure forever. So give you my love. Now it's my turn to say. Like they just added that entire middle part
Hmm.
of just talking about her taking this love from the people and being like, you know, I'm gonna do it for you. Again, like she's always saying that stuff. She's doing it for love. She's doing it for the people, is what she's thinking. Um, in these moments.
That's what she's claiming.
That's what
Yeah.
she's
She's
saying.
like,
And
yeah.
during the part where
Um,
she's like in that transition where they added lyrics, she's like stepping into the audience and like um
mhm.
finally like kind of addressing and just going through and looking in people's eyes and just walking through the audience, and it's just such a fascinating part of the song. um
The song is so beautiful. And
it is
that's what's like even crazier. It's like that song is so beautiful and it like is
also
it's
awful.
like a whole one it's like a whole multi-act musical in just that one song because it talks
Yeah,
about the death of her personal life, her coming back, and then like this brand new life that she has
yeah,
put in like her political persona. I mean, like if it is you if it is true that you shall have played me, well, it's because of you nothing can stand in my way.
yeah,
Like she in a way it kind of sounds like, well, if you're going to take over my life, like as a people, you're gonna move out of my way and kind of do whatever you want me to do.
yeah.
Which is very interesting considering after that, I want to say, because it's poor me and then please don't right after that, if I
Yes.
remember right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that whole whew, Star and
And,
Slave
and
is
even on I think it's a little thing kind of like with that line that we were talking about, men will do anything, that there's nothing you can do to me. She's like, I can't be hurt anymore by those things that they say. Like, let it go. Like she's just like, I'll take it. She's like, it can't hurt me anymore. Like
mm-hmm,
that's it.
yeah. Because she's
This is it.
She's literally like throwing all of her emotions, all of her feelings
Yeah.
away for the sake of being the mother figure of the Philippines is what she was so obsessed with being. Um,
And she kind of got it
and then there's
yeah.
she did something. She
It
did
is something.
something. She did something.
Yes, and then we move into Poor Me, which is kind of, I like to think of it as like the Lin-Manuel Miranda song of the show, where they just mix everything together. Like if you actually are thinking about it, because she does the whole like walk. She introduces Walk Like a Woman again. She introduces Star and Slave, and then
Hmm.
you got the Poor Me part. I was like, this is the Lin-Manuel Miranda like song of your life's love, where you just kind of mix everything together and create a single song. Um, and yeah, so the beginning is like Marcos trying to get her back. he's like
Hmm.
he's like the Queen of Hearts for all of these years, and then he's like, don't leave me alone, like, I love you. All
I
that
do
stuff.
think it's interesting though that he used "Walk Like a Woman" because I'm thinking about that line where she's like, "And if you love me on the day we met," like because literally "Walk Like a Woman" is her being like she wants to be enough for him, and
Mm,
I could be reaching, but I mean like maybe now like that's him being like I want to make this work so that you'll stay with me.
yeah,
When in "Walk Like a Woman," she's trying to be enough for him to stay with her
I think that
because
makes sense.
I
Yeah.
mean like yeah, because I mean like they didn't really say like when he started, being unfaithful, but I mean that could have very well been one of the parts because I remember she said at some point that she was like getting so sick, like, and she was stressed out and she was having anxiety. That Marcos claimed that he was going to stop politics. So that very well could have been one of the cases. But I do think that's the interesting motif that started back up. And then, of course, the
Oh, we have to talk
two
about
lines that
that.
always,
Yeah, so
always get.
there are two lines on the show, which when I heard for the first time, I was like, what's going on? You hear all these people laughing, and you're like, huh? And then you go home, if you're like me, you go home and look it up. So those
Yeah.
lines, I will say it because it's funny. Um,
It's also hilarious because Cherish, one of the producers of the show, actually got them all like Patagonia shirts.
yes, no, I
They're
love
like, that
that.
is
I saw that.
so funny. Oh
So
my gosh, that's funny.
So Marcos is like, for there is darkness when you are not here. And then Imelda goes, Putangina mo, you deserve to be sick. In public,
That is
says,
so funny.
you did to me. And she says, yo titi mo, how can it run the country? It takes a woman to do a man's job. And so that's what it is.
The applause.
That's the like little
The
phrase
applause.
that is like the best part of the song. So putangina mo, that is a curse word in Tagalog. It's like it roughly translates to your mom's a whore. So there's that. And then you wanna talk about the other one, Aaliyah?
Oh man. Um,
As I take a sip of
um,
water.
Timon, right?
Yes.
Ti-
Titi mo.
So that's roughly the exact opposite of what being well endowed would be for a man. And you can kind of make an inference because I never got to see Ariel, not Ariel, Jesus Christ. I never got to see Brucey's performance. I saw Ariel multiple times, but Ariel, and I want to say JG also did this, will go like this
Yeah.
when they sing it. So you can kind of make an inference
Yeah.
on what she's talking about.
Then everyone laughs.
Um
It's funny.
Everyone laughs, but it is I remember watching your pod with Aaron and how
Uh-huh.
excited about him and Tim or like some of him and the other ensemble members were like, listen for how many Filipinos are in the audience. And
Yeah.
so like after he said that, I like started to listen because I'm like, that's usually the one that like gets a laugh. But then remember like when I went home and I like looked it up, and I just remember being like, "Ooh," like that is hilarious.
No, I think the funny thing
Um,
about this too is like I don't curse like in my personal life, like it's just a personal choice, but like Tagalog is so funny. Like to curse on like a different language, it's just like funny to me. I'm like, I don't
no,
know.
but also like that's absolutely amazing because that's Tagalog spoken on a Broadway stage, which
Yes,
is
because there is
amazing. And
there
like those two being the words.
yeah. No, there's not much Tagalog in the show, but like that I think that might be it, honestly. Like I think that's it, right? I mean, I can't think of any other
Um,
Tagalog in it.
and I know in Order 1081, they
Jello
talk
like
about buko.
oh, buko, yeah. And then I know Jello during
Yeah.
rights and bombs, he would like start yelling in Tagalog. But like obviously that's not really
Yeah.
the script. But
So like scripted, I don't believe there's much Tagalog, but
yeah, which would be like that's okay. Well, never mind, never mind. And just ask the flowers, tama na, sobra na, and we'll
yes, I
later.
was like, I feel like that's not
Well, I'm like, we'll get
all
into
of it.
that later, but that is another mention of Tagalog in the script. But yeah, this is the scene. We're still on poor me. Oh my God. Where
Yeah.
Marcos is. We only got through the first two like lines. Marcos is sick. He's not doing well, and so,
Rumored to have lupus.
yes, Imelda is like, okay, well, now that you're sick, now I have to do everything. She's like, I'm the star and the slave here. I am going to take over. I'm going to be, you know, the girl boss of the Philippines, pretty much, if you're putting it in current terms. But yeah, she's
But
like,
I mean, also like,
yeah.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say like, learn to walk like a woman. Nothing can stand in my way. She's like, there's no Marcos can't stand in her way anymore. He's sick. What's he gonna do? Oop,
Hmm.
that was my bad. But yeah, it's like what is he going to do now that he's not in power anymore and he can't do anything. And so she doesn't have anyone to go through to get her like what she wants done. She can do it. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and then no, you're good. I was thinking about that's another big Chris attache moment where they're of course twisting the narrative. Like in the on the screen, I want to remember it says Marcos is rumored to have lupus.
Yeah.
Like you've got them on the side and Malacanang Palace
Hmm.
being like, he's fine. Like literally like twisting the narrative, being like, I just saw him today. He's writing a book. He's so overworked. Like just trying to spin it so that way he doesn't look like he's ill. I remember
Yeah.
watching another podcast that Jose was talking about that it's kind of like another dictator that's currently in power. Like he I think there was like a rumor about him being unwell, and then like literally later on, like they showed a picture of him like riding on a horse, like shirtless or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, don't quote me on that. Don't put that in the podcast until I confirm that. But
It's okay.
that is still like
I'll just say it's a hypothetical. It's probably happened before, honestly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but like that's still one of the big things about the Marcoses that they were really big on changing the narrative. They wanted what they believe to be true to be podcasted to the world.
Yeah.
And that's a really big one. I mean, like not having your people believe that you are basically inhuman because they felt as though it was their divine right to rule over the Philippines.
Yeah.
So that's also a very, very strong moment right there, as well in regards to symbolism. I need people to stop liking my stuff on Instagram.
Social media is fun. And then yeah, so that's poor me. Now we get into I think the song that you and I have been wanting to talk about for quite a while now. Just like
Manipulation 101.
yes, it is. We are on Please Don't. Um, and Please Don't is kind of there's a lot of stuff going on in it where Australia is getting interviewed by Jasmine, Jasmine's character about like her history, and then Ninoy is also just talking and like calling her out again, kind of like Fabulous One 2.0, of just like what's happening. And you can't hear that in the cast recording whatsoever. So like if you listen to it on the cast recording, it is so different to experience it in real life. And this song, my gosh, like there's so much to talk about. Again, all of Imelda's songs are 3-act musicals in one like line. Um or in like one song. And just the way that Ariel took this, because I've only seen Ariel before, but the way she took this song is so fascinating. And I remember the first time I was ever on the floor, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. So obviously I didn't like have the best spots for some things, but for Please Don't, I had the best spot ever. And that's why afterwards I was like, I'm totally fine with being like further away because I had that one experience where it's kind of like, okay, so if this is the mez, this is like the front of the theater, whatever. And then she's kind of like on that platform in the center, like just singing, and she's kind of like a pop star or just like in a concert
I
setting.
think that's like a I think that's kind of a appropriate remark to make. I mean,
Yeah,
like she's manipulating the audience and she's kind of being like, "Hey, like we're here to have fun. Like this is a party." Her and JG, like I I don't remember which one of them said it was kind of like manipulation 101. Like that's what the entirety of the song is. And
yeah,
then like she's kind of lulling you into this sense of like, "Oh, I'm here to like help you. I'm here to make sure that we as the people, as the Filipinos, don't get looked down upon." Meanwhile, she's making sure that she is not looked down upon because I mean, like, she is about to rip Australia a new one because she is like her past is being revealed.
yeah.
And,
She doesn't like that because
at that point, she,
Tina's cool.
yeah. And she's like, yeah, she's basically being like shown out in the light of being like, oh, she was not this rich girl coming up. This is also an interview that I think Ariel was talking about where she was like, if her past got revealed, like that could damage her relationship with Marcos, that could damage her political prowess, all
Yeah,
of that, because I mean, this whole lie that she has built up come crumbling down. Like if they saw that. So like of course buying her out, which does not go well because we see that on Solano Avenue.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, like she assumes that her beauty and her, way with words, because she's been able to sway the people for so long, she thinks that she can do that with people that have known her from the beginning, like with Estrella and with Ninoy. I mean, like I think about that a lot in those two songs. I mean, like these people have known her entire life,
Yeah,
essentially, and they know how she works and they know like what pretty words she uses. So they're kind of I don't I want to say kind of immune to it, but I think that they're pretty immune to her tactics because they knew her then. They knew her when.
yeah,
So they're
definitely.
not, you know, um, they're not so easily fascinated or easily swayed by the words that she's saying. But I mean, that whole song it's just mind boggling. And I mean, like one of the things I got the chance to ask David Byrne about because I remember I was in the audience, like a first couple of times on the floor, and I just remember when Moses like, "Okay, everyone, stand up and dance with the world leaders," and that last part where he's like, "Jump, jump." I remember just hearing the noise like in the theater, not like the audience noise, but like the music just get
Yeah.
so loud, like you couldn't even think. And I remember being like, "This feels very intentional." Like,
Mm-hmm.
because she wants to kind of drown out the things that are being said, like
Yeah,
Estrella on the news, Ninoy talking to the Senate and Congress. And she just wants you to focus on her
yeah. I
because she's like,
remember
I need you to listen to me. Like, yeah.
I remember you telling me about the music getting louder because I don't think I realized that the first few times. And what I was gonna say was like when the first time I saw it on the floor, I was right next to the platform, which was crazy.
Hmm.
And I don't even know how I got there. I don't know how I got there. I just somehow did. Um, and I just remember being on that platform and like next to the platform, and I was like, oh my God, this woman is a rock star, like pop star. Just the way that she does like the thing with the mic, like everything about it.
And that's
And it's just
yeah.
crazy. And then you can see her do the flick that Imelda did on the side, and then the like this thing again that she does in Child of the Philippines too. She does this like little eye thing. Um
The little move that Imelda does.
yeah, just like, and we don't know what it
Hmm.
really means, but it's just fascinating to watch. Um and yeah, the music getting louder, it's just insane because you're just like, what's going on? I mean, you could wear earplugs, but honestly, I never wore earplugs at the show, even though I do get overwhelmed by loud
Hmm.
noises sometimes. Um, I remember it just being like that last few times that I saw the show, obviously know what it means, know what Imelda's doing, but in that moment, still, you're like, let's just get into the music and just dance
Hmm.
and kind of be what she would want you to do in that song, even though you know it's not what you're supposed to do, which is a
Yeah,
fascinating.
because I mean, like you have Moses being like, "Come on, dance,
Yeah,
jump up, like put your hands in the air,"
yeah,
and yeah, and I mean that last little bit, like where you see that her wall is kind of crumbling down, and like you hear the music kind of being taken apart,
yeah,
because the audience now sees this is not the real Imelda, that this is the real Imelda that is finally being shown. I mean, like you have Ninoy talking about what happened to the students, um, like the demonstrators and all of the pain that they went through. And I remember, I think it was this is what I wanted to talk about, the Sunday night that you left there, that moment where he's like, the cruelty suffered by thousands of students will not be forgotten. And I just remember there was like loud applause like at that moment. And there's not normally like applause during that
no,
moment.
no,
And that was when Aaron went on. And it does like kind of charge that situation up a little bit more. Because I know my coworkers went and they didn't realize that that like really happened.
yeah,
And so, like, that's a moment where you're kind of like, if you didn't know, like, this stuff was real, like, that has kind of that light bulb moment, like, this really happened. And it's not like this was like 100 some years ago. Like, my mom graduated high school when the Marcoses were exiled, to
yeah,
give you some idea.
yeah. No, and then
But
especially with what
I
he
mean,
says,
yeah.
what Ninoy says after the line you were talking about, he says like the police tasting blood, like what must the rest of the world think of us? And then Imelda again is like, don't look down on us.
Police.
Even though she's doing all these
Yeah.
things, it's like, don't look down on us. We're okay and hanging out with world leaders and all these affluent people. Um,
And what's even worse is she's like not even saying like don't look down on like the Filipino. She's saying don't look down on me. Like the us is like quotation marks.
yeah,
But I mean, like the music is gone. And one thing that I remember, because I got the joy of seeing JG a couple of times, is like in that last moment, like she'll like try to rouse the audience like by trying to clap and like get everybody back into it, like trying to distract them again. But by that point, like the music's almost all gone. But she's like really trying. She's like, come on, like we're here to have a good time, like still trying to get that morale back up. And I just remember being like, wow.
yeah.
Like
No,
both of them are absolutely spectacular. Yeah.
it's a fascinating song, and also it's about how with her she has all these relationships with these world leaders, and she's a woman. A woman
Hmm.
knows like I like what she does on the thing. What she does with the microphone, she kind of does like a little like fancy hand thing with it on relationships.
Yeah.
I saw a video of it recently and I was like, oh, I forgot she did that. Um, and it's just crazy. And then like when she does after the flick, she like touches her little like her sleeves and like does choreo with the sleeves, and you're like, she knows exactly what she's doing. And it's kind of the seductive, like kind of dancing in a way. Um, Even like this thing too was when she was like trying to like almost seduce Ninoy too. Um,
Hmm.
it's like what that means. She's like, no, we don't need the president. She said, like all these things, and then she's able to deal with all these world leaders who maybe also aren't the best people either. Um, and just like don't look down on us like they used to do to me. which is kind of like
Hmm.
goes straight into Solano Avenue with like the like they used to do to me, like her past, but like she doesn't want that to be what she's known for. It's such a fascinating song. I'm like, I
I
could
love
probably,
Solano Avenue.
yeah, both of the songs, like Please Don't into Solano Avenue. She even does, what is it, at the very end, she's like, where did it go? Let
Why do
the
you say these
they
things?
used to do to me, like me, and then it goes straight into the next song, like, oh, why do you say these things? Like, you know they're not true, and it's so hurtful to me. And she's like trying to rewrite her history.
Ooh, no, but I just thought about this moment I'm gonna have to talk about when we do Why Don't You Love Me, because there's this thing that Ariel does.
Yes.
I think we've talked about it before when she's talking to Australia. She's like, I thought we were friends, friends always. Um, but we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah.
I think about that so often
Yeah. No,
because I'm
and
just like, ooh.
Solano Avenue is one of the like lesser known songs of this show, or like not talked about as much, but it's such, I mean, they're all fascinating songs, but this one is just like, again, Imelda going straight from her manipulation song into another, yet again, her attempting to manipulate and then failing. Um,
Hmm.
and she doesn't like that because she's, yeah, of
No, of course.
course.
She's so used to getting her way, like, especially after, I mean, like, she's got this affluent man that is quote unquote obsessed with her. Like, that was what I think she lived off of. I mean, she wanted to be known as being beautiful, she wanted to be loved, she wanted to be adored. And I mean, she has this man that seems to adore her. She has the Filipino people that seem to adore her. And she is obsessed with that. And she,
Yeah.
Solano Avenue, I mean, like the fact that she thought that she could just woo Estrella with money. And then she's almost taken aback. She's like, you don't want money? Like, how does that work? Like, everybody wants money.
Yeah, she's like, why don't you
Like,
want this? Because it's maybe the best thing I can offer you. Because she
I
would,
mean, the best thing that she could offer her would be so much more. I mean,
yeah. And a moment
but
I
I
think about
mean, yeah.
all the time too, um, is after, so what was it? Estella goes like, so take back, and then like throws it down, and then
Mm.
lights change and whatnot. And then later on, Imelda goes to pick it up, and then she's like, you see her think, she's like, no, I'm not gonna stoop this low. Pretty much, like that's what her face is saying. Like, I'm not gonna stoop this low to pick this up for her, and just like let her do this to me. Like, I don't know. It's just such like an interesting
Yeah.
thing to look at on Ariel's face because you see it
Yeah.
happening.
And I mean, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you
Um,
keep yeah.
no, yeah. I mean, like, it's lost my train of thought, but I mean, like, she is still, like we talked about earlier, she's still very much trying to be manipulative, like throwing things back in her face. Like, I used to think that we were friends, and then going back to it's not my fault that you were poor, when in actuality, it is very much her fault that she's poor. I mean, like, she was never paid, like, ever. I
Yeah,
mean, like, she
I
literally
know. That's another.
was never paid, and she never, like, Australia never made that to be Imelda's problem. And for her to like throw that in her face, like you see like Melody be like, what are you talking about? And even when like Ariel or JG is like, are you saying that we were friends? Like you see Melody be like, we are friends. Um, and then she's like, these things you want won't make you happy. She literally is still so ingrained in thinking that money will solve all of her problems, money and power. Because she's like, I'll help you feel like you're secure. She's like, take the money. Like,
Yeah,
me saying that I know you will not change anything. Like, it's not going to make you money. Like, it's not going to change your situation. Have some money. Like, shut up and take the money. And she is just so distraught over the fact that she can't be fooled by pretty words and by wads of cash like everyone else in her life have been, like, up to this point.
mm, yeah,
So,
yeah. And then like the part, um, Like when they teased you on the street, when they hurt you deep inside, and then like to me it was that you came running, and then there's like thunder, and Imelda goes back in her arms again, like and I held you and you cried, and then you see for a moment them go back to where they were at Here Lies Love, and then the snap out of it in like a second
Hmm.
of like
Yeah.
Australia
And I mean, like you,
as who loved her, like as who she
yeah.
was
I mean,
before she became who she became.
yeah. And like even that last part, like when Australia goes up to her again, like trying to be like, just tell people that you know who I am. Like that's all she wanted. Like when she has whoever's doing Nathan and who else is doing that track? I want to say Roy. Yeah, I want to say whoever's doing Nathan and Roy's track at the time, like pull Australia out and pull her to the back. Like if you watch Ariel, you kind of see for a moment that facade kind of fall because she almost seems so shaken at the fact that she wasn't able to get her way. At least like that's kind of how I took it. Of course, that may be a very different interpretation of where it could be like Imelda's cracking because she is hearing her best friend call out to her and she's putting her through pain. And
Hmm.
then she goes back under that facade and it's like, sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the good of the country,
Our
our country.
Yeah.
Um,
And then that
yeah,
moment,
that's
her just saying a line, one of the only spoken parts of this show, and it's so she's just so convinced like that what she's saying is good. And it's really interesting.
mhm.
Um, and then obviously that goes straight into Riots and Bombs, which is a very fascinating just part of the show where I remember the first time I saw it, I like knew it was coming, but I wasn't not ready for like because I was right next to the Please Don't platform still. Um, and so got to see it from that perspective instead of like in the front area. And I remember just like smoke coming out, and I was just like, what is going on? Where it like actually put you in that position. And I know some people got a bit overwhelmed by that. Um, and it is overwhelming. We're not saying that it's not, but it's just such a, I don't think the show could do without that part of the show because it really does bring to light exactly what people were feeling at the moment leading into 1081. Um, of like really the atrocities that occurred in the um in history. Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, there were protests and at that time, I mean, like literally what led up to that order being laid out was the bombings of the Liberal Party. And I mean, I that part will never not like get to me in that show because I mean, there's always just a blood curdling scream and just seeing I don't even think there's words to kind of describe it, but I I I don't know.
It's really hard to watch, definitely.
Yeah. And
Like
I
I
mean, it's not supposed to be like easy to watch. That's a very real thing.
Yeah.
And it is a very real thing that happened. Very real people were involved in those protests. And there were some audience members that may have been involved in those protests. And that is a very necessary portion of the story that needs to be told,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. I know it, like watching, I think especially Carol in some of those moments was like really hard for me just like seeing her curl up and like out of fear in that moment during riots and bombs and just how like necessary that section was because you really can't tell that story without mentioning that even though it is hard like but you know theater is I mean like history isn't always pretty and it's not always perfect and there's so much wrong with a lot of things and so you really do have to bring to light that before you're able to like get to the point of what you're trying to say. um and then Order 1081 is another just like heartbreaking song where it's just ensemble based and again turning to the people Um, and you have each of the people singing different lines throughout the theater. And usually it starts on like if you're facing backward, like on the right side, and just kind of moves, um, keeps moving backward. Um, and like you can just see the hurt on people's faces of just like what's
Yeah.
going on. And
And
then
then you have
Ninoy
yeah,
comes to and just like says things again about how, Marcos is claiming the liberals bombed themselves at Plaza Miranda, and just what was going on again, like, you know, bombs and people don't have homes, and like the part, I forgot who sings it, but like now we live down by the water in a shack that's made of wood, and like,
it's Shay's track and the Aurora track.
okay, yeah,
Hmm.
and just you know, the feeling of like these people are in so much need of like just basic human rights. Um,
And what's
and
even
101 is like taking that away.
like scarier, because I mean I feel like I always have to say that I was a political science major, so I was a little bit more kind of aware of like when everything happened in January 6th. Like I had a friend that was at like that was in the House of Representatives, like in Congress, like when everything was taking place.
Yeah.
So that was a very scary day, like
Yes.
for me. And I remember the words martial law being thrown around, but I didn't really know what it was. And, at the beginning, you see all these different statistics of over 70,000 people being killed, over 50,000 being over, sorry, not killed, 72,000 injured, over 50,000 incarcerated, and 3,200 people were killed. Um, and then you see in the background also Marcos dismantles Congress, Marcos dismantles the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And those are like, if anybody is not super familiar with checks and balances, like those are the one thing that keeps
The
one
president.
branch from having so much power over the other, is that. And I mean, like, literally being like, this is the end of democracy, that is the truth.
Hmm.
I mean, you have this one particular man that has power over everything,
Yeah.
from the military to being able to literally put in imprisonment camps people that speak out against him, and just do these horrific things and no one bat an eye. Um, yeah, like that was a very scary thing, to think that that was almost very much our reality if January 6th had been very successful.
Hmm.
Um, and it does kind of make you look back and think, like, if we're not careful, if we kind of keep following the patterns of just blindly following political leaders or idols, um, that we very well could be in the same situation.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah. And just and then that going into 7 years where Ninoy has been in prison now and he's trying to speak out, but he's thrown in jail for 7 years of just salt.
yeah, to be falsely accused of bombing his own party,
Yeah,
which is insane.
absolutely insane. And then Imelda goes to go visit him. And then
Yeah,
just like
a
that
lot of
too.
7 years is one of like, it's in one of my favorite songs in the show. Because again, like kind of with Estrella, I mean, she's thinking that with Ninoy, she can kind of seduce him,
Yeah.
into doing whatever she wants to do. Um, coming in with sweet words and being like, "Oh my gosh, you've been in here for 7 years." Like, and he's just like, "Girl, like, get to the point. Like,
I'm
what
trying to
exactly are you doing here?"
like I have a bunch of moments from the show that I didn't want to forget, so I like wrote them all down. Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
found um wait, it's during the line when Imelda is repeating the tall like you were my first love, but you said I
But
was
you said,
too tall. And then Conrad, you can just see him, and his mic's not on, by the way, but like if you are in the front, you will see it, where he just goes, "What is the matter with you? Like, what is the matter with
mhm,
you?" Because obviously he didn't just break up with her because she was only too tall. Like that is not the only thing. And we talked about that last time about just how ridiculous it is. Um, yeah, and then like on in the beginning too, like at the beginning of the song 7 Years, Ninoy goes over to like the pool because they're using that staircase as his kind of cell. And he just like puts his nose on
mhm,
it, like he just puts his face on it, and you can just see so like dejected. And he just has tears in his eyes. Like Conrad and Aaron both had tears in their eyes that entire song of just, I don't know, such like anguish of just like, why are you doing this to me? And just,
yeah. And I just
yeah.
the I like kind of going back to the song. Her being like, "I heard a voice say go and help you out." Both Aaron and Conrad kind of being like, "Yeah, okay." And then she's like, "So I've come to set you free." And then of course, like I think we talked a little bit about the Santo Nino
Yeah.
um
Just the
thing
meaning
back in
of
the
that too.
Philippines.
Yeah, because like a lot of Filipinos are very religious, in that
Hmm.
sense where they always go, they go to church like, and they have the rosaries and different thing, and usually have like a lot of the sculptures in their houses and stuff. And so I remember the first time I think I knew what maybe Santo Nino was like probably me seeing it in my friends our friends' childhood, like during my childhood, like in their home. One of those sculptures was probably Santo Nino. But then I remember they made a joke about it in Joe Coy's movie Easter Sunday, and I was like, this is funny, but I didn't know why.
Hmm.
And then obviously in this, I was like, okay, what is Santo Nino? It sounds like Nino. I would like, a little bit, like maybe people think that's what it is. And then I remember visiting a friend who is in the hospital, who's Filipino, and just seeing a little keychain on his desk, and I was like, "Oh, what is that?" I was like, "It's a little, a little saint or something." And he's like, "It's Santo Nino," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I just thought about it, and I told him about how it was featured in Here Lies Love, and just what it says, like take good care of him, where it's just like a meaning of protection for Filipino people, I guess.
Hmm.
And just to see that happen in real life was just such an interesting experience for me, where um, it brought the show again into my real life and just showed exactly
Hmm.
why how important it is. Because to most people, they hear Santo Nino, they have no idea who that is or what that even means. But to Filipino people, it's
Yeah.
such like a powerful figure in their lives that they've known their entire lives. Um, and
Yeah.
to hear that.
The baby Jesus, I want to say, right? Is
Yes,
the
yeah, it's like a baby Jesus
Mhm.
statue pretty much. And so when I remember
Mhm.
hearing it, those last four shows that I saw that one weekend, I would just start tearing up during like the Santo Niños and just looking at the girls and their at the ternos and their outfits and just like remembering what it means again. Because like it could be such like it could wash over you if you don't know what it means, but if you do, it's just like a powerful moment of like like Imelda's saying, she's saying it of like protect Ninoy
Mhm.
as he goes off on his adventure back to America. Um, And yeah, it was just
But
it
it's
was
so interesting because, like, I think she had the Santo Nino not just be like a place of, you know, like a place of a religious place, but also for her,
yeah.
like, which I'm also like his girl.
Yeah.
But
But she does this too as well. Like the
mhm.
thing that a lot of
It's
people
like a very kind of, yeah, it's like a very kind of, for her, it's like a very overly exaggerated, like, oh, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart. I just want good things for you, knowing good and well that that is the farthest thing from her mind. She just wants someone that will not speak out against her.
yeah.
And
And
it is
then
shown like
also
in her actions.
and then at the end, like right as, see you dead, and then she goes in to like try and kiss him, and then he pulls away, and he's like, I'm not leaving you, I'm leaving my country. Like,
Hmm.
he's like, I'm not guilty, and
And
then
what's
he's gonna
so
leave. But it's just so fascinating. Go ahead, sorry.
what no, you're good. What's so interesting is that that kiss, I think, was added on a little bit later in the run. And
Yeah,
I remember being like, oh, because I mean that kind of falls back on one of the things that I don't know if there's a whole lot about their relationship, but Imelda does not historically seem like the best to take rejection lightly. Like,
yeah,
she does not seem to handle it well. And I mean, I feel like that added moment was kind of like that last ditch effort to
yeah,
be like, oh, well, let me see if, this was a one off. Like, now I'm wealthy, I have this power. And, as if to say, like, what do you think of me now? And like for him to still kind of rebuff her,
yeah.
she's
And
just
again,
like,
he was married to Corey. Like, he was married and
exactly.
had children and
But
everything.
she felt like she felt like she was everything and then some. So,
Yeah.
but
And then,
another thing too that I will always think about is I'd happened to notice, like, because I stood a little bit closer to the stage, like when Ninoy is walking off and he's like, "You must know that I'm not guilty. You must know that in your heart." Like, Imelda is kind of like laughing, like she just
mm,
kind of thinks this is just so laughable,
mhm.
and she's just kind of like brushing it off, and she's like, "You remember all those times you used to walk me home? Like, don't be a hero. Just like, don't come
Don't
back."
come back. Yeah.
Like with this like very snarky like smile on her face, like a very, that scene kind of gave me Kiss of the Spider Woman vibes. Like if I don't know why that, like I thought about that because I mean like at the end of Kiss of the Spider Woman, I think like she like kisses him and he dies, but like it's also set in a prison.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know why it just gave me those types of vibes where it was kind of like the Judas kiss, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
of being like, "Oh, I'm doing this to help you. Like, if you stay here, like there are people that want you to die. So I'm going to let you go off. Like, why do you think I'm doing all these horrible things? Like, I mean, I'm doing you a solid. I'm letting you and your family like go off to America where people can't find you."
Yeah.
So I that is one thing that always put like a chill down my spine, like to just hear Imelda like just kind of laughing it off. And I remember like my face speaks very loudly. I remember I was watching, I think it was a time that Conrad was on. I heard the laugh because I didn't see it, and I turned and I gave like the dirtiest look. And I was like, "Are you being so for real right now?" And then I was like, "Oh my God." Um, so it's like moments like that that like really kind of add even more emotion to that specific
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
Especially when you have had the opportunity to like see it because you notice so many things, because you notice so many different callbacks. But and then on the final thing, like you see that Nino has been exiled
To
to
Cambridge.
America.
In Cambridge,
Yeah,
which
Cambridge,
is, I
Massachusetts.
am 20 minutes away from Cambridge right now. Like literally, I could get on on a bus and be not even 20 minutes, like 10 minutes away. I could get on a bus and go there right now. And that's where Ninoy went during his exile. And I remember
Hmm.
reading a thing too about how Corey said that that 3 years being exiled in America was the best years of her marriage ever. Of just like her getting to be at peace with her husband and her family and just live their lives for a couple years. Like I remember reading that very recently, and just like just it washing over you and just being like, oh my God, like it's such a powerful story. And then obviously in between
Yeah.
the two songs, there's that little America interlude. That's
Hmm.
not like the
So I'm
most,
trying not to get teared up now, the fact that you just said that. Oof.
yeah,
But yeah, that sequence, where you have the drum line,
yeah.
um,
You get to see the instrumentalists, the musicians, which is good.
that were absolutely incredible, by the way.
Yes,
Very
very
incredible,
much.
all of
Yeah.
them. So
And then this is the part where we get into the really hard part of the show.
yeah.
Um, and you have been witness to this at least 5 times now, of just me and you like being overcome with emotion at this song, honestly,
Yeah.
and like not knowing what to do. Because I remember the first time I watched it, I halfway through the show realized, oh right, Ninoy was assassinated, because I had read the Wikipedia and different websites of the history, and so I knew it happened, and I'd read that in like May, and I didn't see the show till July, and so I had forgotten. And then halfway
Hmm.
through the show, I realized that Ninoy had to die before the show ended. I remember that, and I was like, okay. I remember watching it, and I was like, okay, it's gonna come at some point. Um,
Hmm.
and I just remember that feeling of uneasiness when the song started, because then I was like, oh, okay. I think I know
Yeah.
what's gonna happen.
I um I remember like in his, because there's a bit of dialogue that's pre-recorded, where he's talking to a journalist before he goes back to the Philippines. Um, the main reason that he was going back was, Marcos had a very low chance of survival, which meant that Imelda would very likely become the main de facto ruler of the Philippines at
Yeah.
that point. And he was like, he did not want to let that happen.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you say? There is a
and
chance for like instability in the Philippines, because of
yeah,
that.
and that's what he's referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, like instability in the Philippines.
But um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it starts at Logan Airport, and it's Boston, Massachusetts.
I told you,
That's Logan
I
Airport.
told you that that's the airport.
Yeah,
I left from that
that's where he
airport
flew
to
out
come
of. Yeah.
home like a week ago, like maybe almost 2 weeks ago now. I was at that airport and I remembered, and then
Hmm.
I just got emotional again. And then when I came back, I went to that same airport, and it made it so real, because that was not the flight that that was not the last flight, because he ended up going to Taiwan before going back to the Philippines, which is interesting because I'm Taiwanese
Hmm.
too, so maybe I've been to the airport too, who knows. And
Hmm.
but it is the airport where he said goodbye to his family for the last time, because Corey and the kids were still here. Um
Hmm.
and so when the first like beginnings of this song starts and the ensemble starts singing, I honestly just start crying. And I like don't know how to feel in that moment, but it's just very emotional for me. And then
Yeah. For
to see Tim do
no, go
that
ahead.
too.
Hmm.
Because he's like so happy in that song before about America. And then you see him leave, and then he comes back on stage with tears in his eyes. And same thing with Christina. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's one of the moments in the show that I think a lot of people that maybe don't know the history kind of have this feeling of finality, Um, like you, I knew that he was going to be assassinated. I didn't know exactly when,
Mm-hmm.
but America kind of had this sense of something is about to happen, but I just did not know what. Um, and one of the things that I will always think about in both Conrad and Aaron's performances was how they wanted to be so strong in front of Corey and Christina, Corey and Christina, Corey and Benny, both of the characters in those tracks, because they didn't want them to be sad, even though like he's letting them know like this is a very real likelihood that you will never see me again. And just to imagine like what they must have felt like having their father and their husband be like, you may never see me again after this.
Yeah.
And knowing that they're doing this for the reason so that that way they and their people can be freed from the pain and suffering that they've had to deal with for
He says like, you know, this thing, it's bigger than me. Like it's not. He's like, it's not about
yeah.
me. It's about something much more than that. And so, you know, he has to go. Um, and yeah, like
Um
I might be seeing you now for the very last time. That always got
and
me.
then when he yeah, that really kind of the last four shows that I went to, that line really started to hit um like even harder. Um like that line always kind of like everything after Order 1081 was never a moment that did not emotionally impact me. Um, but everything just kind of had that finality, those last few shows. But one of the things that I always think about with Conrad and Aaron's performance when they are alone on stage um, at what would be the gate when they're like, I can hear the announcements they call China Airlines. Is like that moment that Ninoy is really by himself and he is being vulnerable.
Hmm.
Um, and he's sharing all of his inner turmoil. It kind of reminds me of oh my goodness, what is that song? In Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's Guess the Main or
Yosemite?
my mom is gonna crucify me. Thank you. I my mom is gonna crucify me for the fact that I cannot pronounce that. But it's kind of that same thing where he's like, I know that I have to do this. It may not be something that I want to do, but I know it's what's right.
Mhm.
Um, and when you're kind of watching, I know for me, I sat up in the gallery um, one of the last few times that I went, and I remember when I saw Conrad come up, I kind of had to look away because I was like, I'm gonna start crying right in front of this man. Um, because it's I don't know anybody that is not moved by that song.
Yeah.
Any I have never met anybody that's not been moved by that song. If you are even the most emotionally stoic person, like that song is going to touch you in some type of way. Because I mean that combined with just Ask the Flowers,
Hmm.
I just uh um
Yeah. I think for me, like 837 is maybe like it's just like when I start crying in the show and then I just don't stop for the rest of it. Um, and especially like he's in all white and you can see he's kind of like a Jesus figure in a way of just you know what's gonna happen. And it even reminds me of Hades Town, how like at the end they're like, you know what's gonna happen, but you hope it doesn't.
yeah.
And just that feeling of
It's
like,
No, yeah, but
It's hard to watch, and then when the gunshot goes off, I just break.
what I think is so interesting is that I don't remember where I read about this, or it may have been something that I like overheard a cast member say, but that assassination was never shown in the Philippines.
Hmm.
Um, that's why the People Power Revolution happened later because it was spread by word of mouth. But like you see on the screen, him laying on the tarmac, right after he's been gunned down, and you hear all the static and clamor, and you have no choice because there's nothing else happening on screen but to watch it. And it's one of those moments in the show where you feel almost, well, you do feel like helpless because it's like I don't even know like words to even begin to like describe it, but I mean it's you can't help but watch it. I
Hmm.
mean at that point it's on the TV, it's like on like cuz I don't know if you've seen like CBS news stories like when there's been a massive like news covering that happens like that, it runs over and over again. And I remember watching some members of the cast that saw it here. They were like, that image is ingrained in their brain.
Hmm.
Like seeing that on the TV running over and over again, his body on the tarmac. Um, and you kind of have that feeling because I mean, like that's literally all the screens are blank except for that one.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like I don't even have words. Like I'm really bad with words, and like that's one of those things that I don't know if I will ever be able to like describe emotionally, like what seeing that like makes you feel. But there's no one that does not feel something when you are watching that, whether that be anger, sadness, or anguish. You are feeling something as you are seeing that on the screen.
Hmm. And then also, I mean, you like I heard a little bit of just an audio from like the last show, um, and you can just hear Conrad just like he's unable to finish the last few words because of probably just sadness for the story and just sadness for himself. Um, yeah, it's like now you're all gathered here at Gate 37. Um, and then it happens, obviously. And just
And
like
then
it's kind of crazy because you just hear a lot of noise and then it goes straight into Just Ask the Flowers, which is Aurora's song. Um, and you just see, someone walk out with an umbrella and then start to sing. Um, and you see the thing on the screen where thousands of people went to his funeral, and that this is Aurora Kino, his mother, just talking about her son. Um,
yeah, I Rianne, who was one of the three women to cover, well, not cover, but to portray the role, was talking about how when one of Ninoy's relatives came to the show, that his funeral actually started in a garage
mm,
because she didn't anticipate that many people coming. Um, and just kind of thinking about that line when she's like 10,000 or more and they waited for hours and she's like, why are you here? Like thinking about the fact that, she didn't even anticipate this many people coming. And then to have this outpour of people coming to support her son because they believed in what he stood for is absolutely overwhelming. And I mean, I remember sitting in the gallery because I know Rianne talked about this a lot, like seeing audience members holding up the Laban sign. And I got to kind of see a little bit of what she was talking about because I was in the farthest back section of the gallery.
Yeah.
And just seeing a lot of audience members on the floor, some members in the gallery, some members in the mezzanine holding it up. And like, I can only imagine, like, every woman that's ever played Aurora that sees that, what they must be feeling, because it is a feeling of you are hearing our story as the people, as Filipinos, seeing what we've been through, and you are standing with us, showing in this moment that you support what we want. Um, and like that song is just absolutely just beautiful from start to finish. It is one of the most moving pieces in the show next to Gate 37. Like that whole last, I want to say
20
6
minutes.
or 7 songs in the show, like the last 30 minutes of the show, including 7 years and Order 1081.
Oh
I
yeah.
want to say 6 or 7 songs is the most emotionally charged portion of the show. And I remember just feeling like I was like raw, like my heart was just so open, and I just remember like kind of clutching my chest because I was just feeling so much. Um, and it was one of those things I didn't even know where to begin processing my emotions, because it was just like, where do I even begin to like explain like what I'm feeling?
Yeah. And I
If
think
that makes sense. I feel like it, yeah.
one of the most interesting like lyrics in the show in this song too is when Aurora, it's like one of the first verses. She sings like, now I watch the procession as his body goes by. Like half the country is here, but they won't see me cry. Like, and you can see whoever's playing Aurora is fighting tears, um, in that moment, and just you don't really know what to do. And then they say, like, just ask the flowers, tama na, sobra na, which is one of the only other Tagalog parts in the show where it's called, it means like enough, it's too much already. Um, like we've put up with so much, but this is going too far. Of just like the people were fed up with what was going on and they couldn't take it anymore. And then, and that was kind of prompted through like Ninoy's death, because he was kind of the like prominent figure of that movement, um and then he didn't live to see the end of it. Because I remember also reading how Ninoy was supposed to run against Marcos in that election, but then he declared martial law, and so he never got to. um and then obviously Corey and Aurora and Benny are all still, they're all left still there, and you just kind of don't know what to do. And they bring out the casket as well and just carry it through the audience on those platforms.
One of the things that I think about a lot, when I was seeing the show, I was in the mezzanine. There were these 2 young Filipino girls behind me, and how far back I don't know how far back you sat in the mezzanine, but the screens on the show, the screens in the show like show Aurora, but they also have these 2 large caricatures of the Marcoses, and um they the 2 girls behind me were like shocked because they were like, they were just kind of surprised to see that that would be on a Broadway stage. I mean, like, let alone like one of the parts of history that, isn't like talked about, um, like at least like on the American side of things. Like if these young women were Filipino Americans, and I don't know how versed they were, but like just the tears in their eyes and the shock of like seeing like that this is being talked about. Um, that's something else that I will think about a lot every time I hear that song or think about that moment in the show.
And actually, something I was also thinking about, that had to do with someone else was since that weekend, the last weekend that I got to go, I only saw Renee. So the first time, two times I saw it, I saw Lea Salonga, and then I saw Vina Morales this third time. And then for the rest through seven, it was all Renee Abolario. Um, and I remember like, um, I was just crying a lot because it's an emotional song, an emotional moment. Um, and I just happened to be standing at the end next to David Abulario, Renee's brother. Um, and during the song, he could just see how much it was affecting me and how emotional I was, towards the end. And I remember him putting his hand on my shoulder just to comfort me a little bit. And you did the same thing for me a couple times as well. Um, I just like it was just nice to know that there were people around me too that were like, seeing me and wanting to like, comfort me in that moment because I was just very, very emotional. And it was also very interesting watching David watch Renee in this show as well. Cause like that's his sister. And as Filipinos, family is so important to people. And I got to meet Renee's whole family and they're all very kind. Um, and at the end, like straight after everyone starts holding it up, I held up the laban with David and with you and everyone else, and just you just hold it up loud and proud, knowing exactly what it means for people. And in the moment you see everyone else start to do it whether they know what it means or not, and it's just about the most powerful thing you can experience on Broadway. um and like I don't think I have any tears left for that moment because it was just such an like it's just such a release of emotion, I think, for so many people. And like, yeah, just what it means to the Filipino community too, of like how much Aquino meant to them. Um, that thousands of people showed up at his funeral. Um, and to just see that recreated on stage is beautiful. Yeah. I don't know. You have anything else to say about Just Ask the Flowers?
My chest is hurting from the overwhelming emotion that kind of um goes in whenever I think about that song. Like that whole section up until God Draw Straight is just a very emotional, um it's just a very emotional journey. And I don't even know where to begin or end with that.
Mm.
Um because I think we kind of touched on everything, but it does lead into the penultimate song, which is Why Don't You Love Me? Um, which is Manipulation 2.0 or 3.0.
You know, yeah.
Um, it's always so interesting whenever I've seen the show, um, is that some people will laugh. Um, and it's not necessarily like in a, they think that the situation is funny, but it, to me, it kind of seemed like a, you just had this person assassinated. You see what he meant to people, and you're asking, why don't you love me?
Yeah.
Um, I never heard it in a malicious way. Did I bombastically side eye some people that started laughing? Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie and act like I did not. But it's really just like Imelda being like, I gave you everything. She does say that also. But I mean, like, she's like, I gave you my life, I gave you my time.
Mhm.
Like, she's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so broken. Like, why don't you love me? And like, I remember I'd seen it so many times at this point, and I remember Ariel being like, it's been so long, our lives. Thought about that callback to Solano Avenue because she does this to Imelda, not to Imelda, Jesus Christ. She does this to Estrella. And
Mhm.
I remember thinking, like, that's very interesting because Estrella is a representation of her relationship to the Filipino people. And at this point, Imelda is speaking directly to the audience, who at this point would be the representation of the Filipino people. I mean, because especially on the floor, you are, you know, the funeral goers, you are attendees of a rally, you are wedding guests, you are literally extras in this musical, which is how the floor is supposed to be set up. But I mean, at this point, you know, it's always been so interesting to me, like kind of because I've gotten a chance to sit in every section. I think the floor is like you're there, and the gallery and the VIP section is kind of like you're kind of watching it on TV, like you're close, but you're not close enough to like be in the action. You're just kind of like a voyeur. And
Mhm.
then the mezzanine, you're really like a voyeur. And like, you know, at this point, Imelda's talking to everybody, whether they're a voyeur, whether they're there, being like, I don't understand like why you don't love me. Like I gave my life to you. And I will never forget one of the things that I think about the most. And I remember Melody talking about this in one of her podcasts. Like sometimes watching the song be performed and then hearing it on the soundtrack is a completely different thing. Like I remember her saying Order 1081 sounds like propaganda, but when you watch it in the show, like you see that that is not it at all. And during Why Don't You Love Me, when Melda and the chorus are like, I did everything for you. I remember the first time that I saw it and I heard um the women in the ensemble sing, I did everything, like that felt so different
Mhm.
because I mean that felt like the Filipino people being like, I did everything for you, like saying that back to her and
Yeah.
being like, why don't you love me? Like, why? Just as the same way as she's saying, why don't you love me back to them?
Yeah.
So that is one of those big moments in the show that if you are only listening to the soundtrack, like you may not feel the same impact that you do like when you're seeing it in the show because that is a moment that I will always think about whenever I go see it. I think about just how like the hair on my arms, the hairs on my neck stand up because that is such a powerful moment to me. I mean, like you have them asking her the same thing, why don't you love me? Why don't you love me? While she's trying to ask them the same thing.
Yeah.
When literally they were the ones that were giving their lives to her and entrusting their well-being to her.
Mhm. And she could get betrayed.
And then yeah,
Yeah. I think in having Marcos and Estrella and even Maria Luisa comes out again and they're just all kind of screaming at her. Um and then at the end just the whys, them repeating.
another thing too, like for yeah, another thing too for like Australia is also like depending on who's talking, like whether it's Estrella speaking as Estrella or the character speaking as the people, like how can you say that? When did you change? You used to love me, was it just pretend? Like if you look at it from like Estrella's point of view, you could be like, did you just pretend to be my friend? But if you're looking at it from the people's perspective, it's like, were you just pretending so that I would vote for you?
Mhm.
You know? And I remember I would kind of alternate it and it would change the impact of the show. Um, so that like her character is like so like there's so many different layers to that that makes that character just all of the characters, of course, but that one really just kind of have that extra a little bit.
And then
But
even with
yeah,
like
the wise and
say
Harry.
with Imelda's last line too, her final lines, remind yourself what you did it all for. And then she repeats it's for love 4 times. And each of them has a different impact, I think, in intent.
Hmm.
It's like, as an actor, usually that's what you are told to do is like if you have to repeat something, give it each a different meaning. But I think this one like really did that. And then the last one is she says it's for love, but almost as if it's a question. Like she doesn't
Hmm.
believe herself anymore.
And what's so interesting is like JG
Hmm.
does it completely differently. Like her last "It's for Love" is like a finality, like she's standing on. She did it for love.
Mhm.
So I loved seeing the differences between both of their Imeldas because they both kind of had the same goal and same intention, but the way that they executed it and the way they emoted it was so different, but it still had the same major impact.
Yeah.
Um, and then like I said earlier, I mean, I went with my coworkers and they didn't even realize that this had really happened until that newspaper clipping showed up.
Yeah.
And like that's only like two of them. Like who knows, like until that moment, like people may have thought that this was, not real.
Yeah.
Um, and that is so interesting to me. And then of course, like Moses comes out and he lets people know, like in his last speech, he's like, democracy is under threat, not just in America, but all over the world. And it's as strong as the people. And then he leads into God Draw Straight, which is, I
Yeah.
remember that song like as a Christian, that song just kind of reaffirms everything that has ever happened in my life personally.
Mhm.
Like the chorus, like God Draw Straight but with crooked lines. But I mean, especially like in this moment, I mean, like they went through so much. I mean, they were seduced, they were betrayed, and then finally they were exiled. And I mean, like eventually they got through it, but it took
It took a lot.
one hell of a way to get there. It
Yeah.
took a long way to get there, and it seemed like it didn't make sense, and it was a very difficult time. But I mean, they were like, "This is God's plan," and
Yeah.
that's how it was always supposed to be. Not
And I think also what we were saying
that
earlier,
song will always get me. Yeah.
since Filipinos, a lot of people are not Christian, but very religious. Like I believe Catholic is usually what Filipino
Hmm.
people are. Um, and what he said, like, in Afro Mestizo held his rosary up. Like that's such
Hmm.
a powerful image for your brain of just like these people, like they just still had hope for their future. And then, nobody got hurt and nobody died. I'll remember this day. I'll remember this time. Or just like
One thing,
I was gonna say, just like how they went about it was so different, but it worked.
one thing that got me a lot. Like once I kind of realized this was especially when Brienne was playing Aurora, was that she and Aaron were both, well, whoever was on for Aaron's track, she would come out with a drum and, and just as the flowers, Ninoy told Aurora he wanted to be a drummer. And I remember
Mhm.
seeing Rihanna come out and was playing the drum. And I remember being like, I just thought about that today. And she was like, that's a moment that, I think about a lot. Like if like as Aurora, like if Ninoy can't do it, then I will do it for him.
Yeah.
And that's just a very like that's one of the things that I think about, as well as, you know, that line where they see the Marcos as being exiled, where it's just silent and they're all watching the helicopters leave out. And I'll never forget this moment, but when Moses came back in and said, and there's so many people, everybody was here, there was someone that started like clapping, like when they were like, we knew it was over, knew it was the end. And somebody like started clapping. I remember I almost started crying. I do not cry in public. Like it takes a lot for me to cry in public. I personally just don't do it. Like I have cried, like typically by myself, but this is one of those moments where I did like almost start crying, because it just like was just, I don't know what it was about that edition of it that just made that moment even more poignant. But like, you don't know who was clapping. It could have been somebody that was there. It could have been someone who had a relative that was there.
Yeah.
And that moment of hearing that it's over, they're gone, and you just see that moment of Filipino joy just on stage, where they are looking at each other and they're like, we just survived one of the hardest points in our lives.
Yeah.
And um, that's another moment that I think about a lot,
Yeah.
along with the final show when Moses was like, if you know the words to the chorus, please sing along. And that added so much more emotional impact to that as well.
Yeah. I remember because usually the first few times I saw the show, I didn't cry during that song. And then during that weekend, the first time I was back, I didn't cry because I was
Mhm.
like, I'd never cried during that song. And then throughout the rest of the shows, I just found myself like sobbing. Um, and because I knew all the lyrics, I would also sing along. Not because anyone told me to, but just because I felt like it. Um, I just remember like first of all like looking up at Moses and then just looking around at everybody else too.
Yeah.
Like seeing them
I
and what it the impact that it had on me and other people.
yeah. That this entire score, like from beginning to end, is just so beautifully done, beautifully crafted. I feel like I have to take a deep breath because we just, yeah. Um, just from start to finish is just one of the most, I don't even have words to like describe the complexity and just groundbreaking like score that was, because I mean there was so much under the guise of like a disco, like that you don't notice until it's all stripped away. I mean, like that was something that Ariel was talking about in a little bit that I watched in the Google Talks.
Yeah, I remember.
Was, you know, a lot of people were like, why disco? And they, you know, and it's kind of like a good question, because it's like, you know, it's about a dictator, it's about the rise and fall of it and the people power revolution and the Filipino people that helped to bring them down. But it's like, you were so seduced by it. I mean, you're like, this is a party, it's supposed to be fun. And then, you know, you're finding out these things and you're seeing the deplorable actions that are happening, but still kind of under the guise of the disco. Because I mean, like, you're seeing all the bad things that are happening during the fabulous ones, but I mean, like, you've still got some of the upbeat stuff going on, like Please Don't, like one of the big numbers before it's all stripped away.
Mhm.
And then like you realize like all the terrible things that are happening. Um but yeah.
Yeah, and I think For me, I know a couple of days ago, Moses posted a video from the last God Draw Straight on Broadway. And I just watched it. I was like, it was like maybe 1 in the morning or something. I was like getting ready to go to sleep. And I just watched it, and I think my roommates were asleep, or at least I hope they were. Um, and I just started like sobbing in my bed, and just like while I was just watching this and just sitting there and just, I think what you said was really, when you said like we knew it was over, um, knew it was the end, and it wasn't just the end for the People Power Revolution, but like the end of Here Lies Love on Broadway, at least right now. Um,
Yeah.
and I just think it's so, that was really hard to watch. Um, and like it was that feeling of just almost catharsis at the end, of just like full emotional like surrendering to this show. Um, or just what it means. And then what you were saying too about the whole drummer thing too, like Ryan doing the drum after she's Aurora or whoever's playing that track. And it made me remember when I turned around because I heard Aaron singing during the song, like the underscoring of that part, and just turning around and like looking under the flaps of the side and seeing his white shoes and like his pants, and just like kind of peeking down there like during Just Ask the Flowers, and then asking him about it afterward because he said Conrad doesn't stand right there, but he likes to be right there um during that part of the song. And I think on the last time that I saw it too, since Aaron was still on, I turned around and you looked at me, you're like, what? I was like, look. And then I point. I was like, I don't
I
know.
do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know if you had known about that moment or not.
No,
Like,
I knew Conrad had said that he stands at stage left because I asked him. I was like Nino is singing the underscore of Just Ask the
which
Flowers
I didn't
with
realize till way,
Aurora. He was like, yeah, and I was like, oh,
yeah. And like you saying the thing about the drumming just made me think about that moment again. Um, of just like turning around and being like, it's as if it's like his ghost, like still there.
yeah.
And then he comes out after at God Draw Straight. Um, and just you get to see everybody, and it's no longer about Imelda or Marcos or Ninoy, and they're all in normal clothes, and you just get to
It's
see.
about the people.
Yeah, they become citizens themselves. Um, and yeah, and then like the TVs went blank and his face disappeared. Like that was the end of it. And then that's kind of the end. That's the end of the show too. I mean, there is a mega mix still, but story wise, it's the end.
That is the last of the story. Yeah.
So
Whew.
that brings us to the end of this, at least just going through the songs. Um, I think we're both just left speechless now. I don't think we have any more words to say. But it's been a
Yeah.
journey. It's been a journey going through all of these. And I'm glad we did, because it's like there's so much nuance to every single part of this score. And when you really dissect it, you can really see the true meaning behind every word that was said. In that some of these words were really spoken by real people. Um, and David Byrne was just kind of like the outlet to pour all of that into. And so it's just
Yeah,
really
literally he went he made sure he did so much research because I think that I don't remember what interview it was, but I remember he wrote it and then he like went to the Philippines and he was asking people. He was like, "Is this like close?" Because he wanted it to be as close to accurate as he could be. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when they used to have the dioramas down that had all the different like portraits that Imelda had in her life that were at the Santo Nino. Um, and you know, thinking about like the fact that he took so much time to make sure that, you know, the little nuances that would not be missed, like even under the guise of like the disco music and the fun, like the fun lyrics, like that you would still notice kind of like the small nods to things that were happening, which is incredible because I mean, like the music is so infectious and it's like hard not to get lost in, which is
Yeah.
almost very similar to, I mean, the fact of, you know, like what the Marcoses did. They were able to seduce them with pretty words, like their pretty
Yeah.
face, kind of in the same way of like the audience is so seduced and enraptured by the music and the pretty disco lights and the disco ball.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it for Here Lies Love, kind of wrapped up
for
with,
n- for
with our
now.
yeah, for now. Our little wrap up of, going through all the songs with Ashley and Aaliyah. I know I had a good time just talking about it again and just I just miss it a lot.
Me too.
I just
Me too.
there's no feeling like it. And I remember leaving on my last time and I took a video of myself talking and I was just crying. And even in the line for coat check, I was crying. And I think people were like, why is she crying? But it's okay.
It's okay.
I'm
Everyone was
like,
crying by the last show. Like there
"Why?"
was not a dry eye in that room. Like I was inconsolable as I was leaving theater. I was like, there's no done being crying. Like I
Yeah.
was like trying to hold it together while I was at the stage door because I was like, I'm not about to like snot cry in front of everybody out here. They just have to watch me during God Draw Straight snot cry. I'm not gonna snot cry out here. I'll snot cry when I get home. And I
Yeah.
did. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to cry now.
For my last stage door too, I was trying to like hold it together, and then Jello came out, and he's like, "Hi, friend, are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm okay."
Oh my
And
gosh. No. When
I was like,
AJ and
"I
I made
think,"
eye contact during during one of the times that they did God Draw Straight, I like lost it and was just sobbing. I was
yeah.
like, nope. So
Yeah, no, and
yeah.
Tim and Jello were both like, "You didn't have to do that to us." So just in the front and sobbing. I was like, "I'm sorry, I was feeling,"
full
but yeah, it's
full
just
crying. I do hope that this is not the last that we see of Here Lies Love in any capacity.
yeah. Bring it
So,
go to
but
California. I wouldn't be there for a while, but I think there's a lot of people who would love to see it over there. There's so many
yeah, but it's
people.
great. Like it's great, like the fact that there are some cast members that are in other shows that we get to support. So when you come here, we'll have to go see, you know,
Yeah.
Aaron Albano and Aladdin, we'll see Jasmine
I've
and
actually
Six, we'll
I've
see
never
Christina and
seen
Wicked.
I've never seen Aladdin.
Well, we'll see it together. It'll be the first time.
Yes, and Jasmine and Six again, and then Christina and Wicked,
Hmm.
which I've never seen Wicked on Broadway before. Um, but yeah.
You got to. You'll be able to point them out like when they come out on stage. Because I remember
Watch,
me and another fan,
I'll
we
just
went and we like, yeah, we were able to point them out like immediately.
Yeah, actors, they go on, they move on, they do other things, and you just keep supporting
So
them.
we're grateful for
Yeah,
all the work that they did on
yeah.
Here Lies Love.
And hopefully we can
I can't wait to watch them.
bring it back and do some more. And hopefully I'll be there to
Yes,
see it more. And
yes.
it's just a beautiful show, and there's really no way to explain the experience of seeing it without actually experiencing it and seeing it. But yeah, thank you to everyone who made it this far. I think this episode will be like 3 hours or something. Longest episode ever, which is okay. The dedicated people will listen.
And if you listen this far, congratulations. You get to see something really cool.
Oh yes, yes.
So to lighten this up,
To lighten the mood of us.
anybody that's ever seen the show, to lighten the last little bit up, anybody that's on my private story has seen this. So Cherish, one of the lovely co-producers of the show, actually mailed me one of the Ninoys that they use. And if you've ever seen the show, you will see that Imelda like takes out the picture of and she's like, Ninoy is my first love. And it's so funny. Like that line never stops being funny. However, it changes for each one.
Yes.
And I I remember I asked, I was like, hey, like, is there any way that we can get these on Flee? And she was nice enough to send me all four because there were four Ninoy swings. So we have Conrad,
Oh, Connie.
our
Conrad.
and then we have
Our love
Anna Alcaraz, and then we have Roy Flores.
Oh, I wish I got
And then we have Aaron Albano.
Oh, I know they all look so great.
It was with they do. I love this.
No, Conrad, I love Conrad's smile. He's one of the happiest, like, he has one of the happiest smiles.
He's just such a happy man. He's just such a happy man. So that's a little fun for you if you made it. Because I know that I have this. So yeah, we'll end it on slightly happier note. All for Ninoys. It's like Pokemon.
The Roy and Aaron ones that never got used. But
yeah, I'm super sad these never got used, but I'm glad that they exist nonetheless.
They exist.
So
yes, thank you all for listening to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. And today was Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha and Aaliyah. We hope that you've seen Here Lies Love or want to learn more. Definitely listen to the cast recording. It's out there and there's performances. There's like, what was it, GMA? They did some other things just for fun. Angelo, who's Angelo Soriano, who is a swing member of the cast. He made a bunch of great videos of unplugged versions of the songs. So definitely check those out because he is a superstar. Jello is pretty much the MVP of the show. So much great content and everything. And just the sweetest person.
Yeah.
And so is the rest of the cast.
Renaissance man. Literally.
Yes. And so really is just support the show your support online, so hopefully they bring it back. Go support all the people who are in other shows, and continue to support BIPOC stories because that's honestly the most important thing that I think both of us care about right now, being BIPOC people.
Exactly.
So
support BIPOC stories. Go see them on Broadway. Don't wait until the last minute to go see them. Go see them while they are open and finding their audience.
Yes.
If you don't take anything else out.
And to actually end it, I'm going to use Mr. Conrad Ricamora's quote that I have used for too many things. I don't know if I told you, but I used it for my college essay, which was about representation. And so yeah, representation. These are Conrad's words, by the way. Representation matters to me because when you see yourself, you feel like you belong. And I think Here Lies Love has made me feel like I belong, and probably same thing for Aaliyah, of just, just think of that face and saying those words of just
think of this face.
Yes. Representation is important. So we got to keep on keeping on, which is another thing that other people have said. But yeah, so thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye. You've been listening to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.